Welcome, everybody, to MogTalk episode 216. Today is January 23rd, 2021. If you guys are unfamiliar with MogTalk, it's a show based around the Final Fantasy XIV community discussing everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing. We are talking about Savage Raiding definitely today, but before we go too much into it, I want to go ahead and introduce our guests. So we're just not looking at some cams sitting here listening to me talk. So first, let's go clockwise. I'm going to start with Ren. Could you tell everybody who you are?
Hey everybody, I'm Rin Karigani. I'm a Savage Raider. I like to do world prog. I like to teach people Savage and Ultimate fights and speedrun a lot. Help people and die a lot, apparently.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, Llama.
Sorry, in my group, we do counterclockwise. I think we need some markers. Can we redo them?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I don't have, so, by the way, Ren, on your cam, I cropped it, so it's not going to show the entire image that you're putting up there, but I'm going to try to get what I can in there. I'm sorry.
Oh, also, I'm not a healer main. Please, I'm a tank.
Oh.
Right.
Okay. Llama, did you introduce or did you just meme? I forgot. All right.
I kind of just memed, but yeah, I do a lot of Savage content, Ultimates, and I also coach and help people, or try to.
Okay.
Most of the time.
What a good guy. What a good guy. All right, and then Momo.
Hey, my name's Momo. I'm a little upset at Frosty right now, but it's okay. I'm a healer main. You can find me at twitch.tv/ffxavmomo when I stream, if I want to stream.
So, yeah, no, real quick, Momo, this is something I'm actually curious about. How much does jumping help when you're doing prog? You know, just jumping around.
Okay, actually, it depends what kind of context you're looking for.
Okay.
You can actually save a few pulls by jumping. I'm sure Rin knows.
Tiles must be really difficult.
Or the paralyzed tech.
Oh, that's true.
Things you can.
The paralyzed tech. Yeah.
There's plenty of places where you can either jump with after or slide cast like an LB by jumping, or
Okay.
For example, the lightning tether in E11, you can jump right before it snapshots, and you'll go that full duration before getting locked into place.
So when you're doing the fog mechanic, what does jumping do there?
Unmuted.
Avoids being near your friends.
Oh, that was good. That was good. All right. Anyways, guys, this has been so. For people who want to know my perspective, you guys know these guys. They have really strong, hardcore, amazing strategy building, everything that surrounds Savage. I have been personally making it a goal to go through this tier in Party Finder as much as I can. I do make some exceptions of things when it gets a little bit too hairy. For example, E9S, I spent 20 hours on it and couldn't get past tiles, and then Llama and Ren and a handful of others came together, and we kind of made it most of the way through it and cleared it. And it's one of those situations to where Party Finder is a fucking mess right now, man. It's horrible. But that's my perspective here, so I'm not as much of a specialist as these three, but I fucking know Party Finder at this point, and we will talk about that in a little bit. First off, let's talk about the Savage tier in general. All right, so Savage, this tier is the last one we're going to get this entire expansion. Is it good? Are you guys happy with what we got? Is this what you were kind of hoping for in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I'm mostly happy. I think I really like at least 11 and 12. It was really fun fights for me.
Okay.
9 can be good with a static, and probably with a speed grip that Momo and Ren are comfortable with.
Yeah, all right. So if the speed group you're comfortable with, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, there might be some in Party Finder that claim to be, but aren't.
You guys Party Finder speed groups?
Oh, absolutely.
There's
Absolutely.
some, yeah.
I'm in one right now. Mm-hmm. It's actually it's really not so bad. So
Okay.
this is the first tier I've ever progged on healer or anything that isn't tank. My first time doing hardcore healing, and it was really fun to get to heal this tier because the final 3 fights, if you include the door boss as a separate fight, really made me think. And there are certain points that it's pivotal that if you don't have a summoner or a red mage and somebody dies, it's going to be really, really hard to come back. We were lucky we had a res mage. But the fights are short, which makes farming them really nice. If you want to just go in, help people, you're not going to be in these 10, 11, 12-minute fights. Because the last fight segmented into 2 parts, you get a lot of prog on the first part of the fight.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, it's really nice. I really enjoyed progging this tier. It went by pretty quickly, and I think farming it's going to be nice and reasonable for people, especially if we do get an ultimate. It's good that these fights are shorter, and that a lot of our drops are raid drops and not tome drops. We can gear up by the time ultimate comes out.
Okay. Momo. You didn't give me your thoughts on this tier yet, did you?
I mean, it's a good tier. I think it's the worst tier of the three, if I'm being honest. But that's
okay.
from
Okay.
optimization perspective. For PF, it's definitely probably the best, I think, just because, like Rin said, E12 being split into two fights is huge for PF.
So all right. I did all three tiers in PF so far.
Yeah.
And I would say that they are about the same. I'm trying to remember the first tier and kind of how bad that was in Party Finder. I can't even remember. All right, so no, actually, the first tier wasn't too bad. Like
It wasn't too
First
bad.
tier
Prime was
was pretty
pretty
bad.
easy.
I don't know. That was
No, Party Finder in there, I was able to get clears of all 4 turns in Party Finder week 1.
Oh, you
Oh, wow.
got more lucky than me. I had so
remember if I
many
did.
orb wipes, so many black smoker wipes.
Oh,
Oh,
no!
God, the Black
Black
Okay.
Smokers
Dude.
is probably the hardest mechanic out of all of them.
Yeah, and as a
Probably the
tank,
hardest.
it was me just waiting and hoping the team did everything properly.
Oh, you got a good run, you're ready, you put hollowed up, and you turn around, and what are they doing?
Yeah, you're just like,
Crying for help.
yeah, just watching them. And I'm pretty strict with the groups when I don't do Discord either, so I'm not yelling out, "Oh, you need to do this," or trying to remind them or anything. I just watch the chaos usually. And that's Leviathan. Yeah, you're right. That would probably be the most miserable part of it. I really liked E2. I thought E2 was a solid. I mean, it was tough, but it was pretty solid for like tank wise, having to move stuff around and kind of position the boss and everything else. I enjoyed
That was a fun fight.
E2
It was a
also
great
really
fight to
brutal on
practice,
Party Finder.
Mm.
The DPS check was really hard, like
Them
early
cycles,
on
man.
for
Yeah,
PF.
the damage downs.
It's
Yeah.
because you'd
Yeah.
always lose some of the cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
Or you'd have Party Finder people not use mitigation, so the double flares at like the 6-minute mark.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
just
mean,
hit
that's the
'em
thing.
raw.
That's kind of when you compare it to E10. Like E10's DPS check is like heavily like made around the damage downs, right? Like week 1, I think we actually killed like almost
Absolutely.
a minute and a half faster than the Enrage, and it wasn't even a clean run. Whereas like E2, I'm pretty sure it was made with knocking damage downs in mind because that shit was tight.
E2 we lost when we killed it week 1. We lost 6 people to one of the cycles, and then Kift and I as tanks finished off like the last percent. But yeah, in Shadowkeeper, I think we had 5 deaths, a set of damage downs. It was not
But that's
bad.
with good players and
This is
healers
true.
that probably DPS. And so you have like people
Oh, yeah.
who are like,
What do you mean?
This is true. We're seeing through rose-colored glasses right now.
and so I mean, as fights overall, I would say that the tier wise, Party Finder tier wise, I would say the very first tier was the easiest. I would say probably the second and third are kind of close, and the only reason I say that is due to Lights Rampant being such a fucking shit fest.
Oh my god.
In Party Finder, and so we still have that. It's not the same. It's a little bit different, but we still have that kind of wall and block for Party Finder right now.
Yeah, not as bright and explosive, but we have it.
I think what makes this tier a little easier though is if say people only know one of the lion sets and you get through it once, that's all you need to do because you have to do light rampant every time you wipe, but you don't have to do lions every time you wipe.
I guess
So you can get to Oracle and then continue. So I think that it's a little bit easier because you could get lucky, but they're still both difficult to execute for Party Finder.
Yeah. So I mean, let's talk about this from like we had this for prog potential is going to get me going for a while for Party Finder, but I mean for new players coming into the game, this is a pretty. I would say it's okay. The issue that happens is E12 and the healer issues is when the new players start to trip up. Because players don't fucking know what mitigation is. They don't know about being as progressive at that point. They don't learn it as much through the previous fights, I don't think, as well. because it's not as required. But once you get into that last fight, it's just a skill check. Does everyone in the party know what they're doing to help out the party? And that's not true because they're not really tested well before they get there. And this, like, what is it? Troubadour, Addle, things like that.
Even just some tanks in PF not using reprisal.
Yeah. Not you
crazy.
know how often I have to force that conversation every single time. It's 9 out of 10 times the tank will pull before there's a discussion on reprisal and E12S. Because they're like, whatever, I'm pulling, we'll figure it out.
Or people that still think they could just off tank the whole time, not really realizing tank swaps need to happen, or that you need to provoke during a cast to prevent your other guy from dying. Whether you have to have second and aggro so DPS doesn't die in the Buster in 12. People really aren't tested on it, and it sucks. But I do think that Cloud of Darkness is a better introduction fight than Ramu was, because it doesn't have an auto wipe if somebody disconnects in the fight. So you could still go through off of a mistake that wasn't yours. Even though Tiles sucks.
Tiles is pretty bad. I think.
But I'm gauging this off of the Holy Grail. I think Chaos was the best first turn fight out of any tier. So I'll always compare to that.
Chaos is pretty good.
What do you think, Momo?
I think A5S is still the best.
A5S was really good, but I don't think it was the best
really good.
starting. Like, it was the best for people who know what they're doing and experienced raiders, but it wasn't the best for like new raiders, I would say.
It also had a lot of gimmicks that you didn't use anywhere else.
Yeah, like turning into
But it was
a
awesome.
monkey.
It was still
Yeah.
great. We all turned into monkeys in Party Finder.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, I don't want to go too much into the fights because we will go into a very hardcore detail of each one of these fights. But I'm talking kind of a general aspect here. You guys have done this a lot more than me. How fun are these fights for optimization and farming and going back and just kind of figuring them out?
Okay, you
You go first, Momo.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, so when I said like this is the worst tier, I specifically said like for optimization purposely, just because a lot of these fights I feel are way easier to optimize for speed kills than the previous turns. Like I think the only one with like really cool tech is E9. E10 is pretty much a striking dummy in the sense that you just shield or mitigate.
Once we
the
eliminated
wards.
the mechanic. Yeah.
Right.
And E11 is kind of the same way. There's really not too much cool tech you can do in that fight. But E9 has a lot. E12 has a bunch too. But Oracle is actually also kind of a striking dummy outside of basic and intermediate. But once you have the intermediate uptime set up, it's kind of just whatever.
I think a lot of people will struggle in Oracle until they get the healing plan down. And you might
Well,
think
this is
you're
from
doing something
optimization,
correctly.
right?
Yeah. So, but there are people who think they could optimize that haven't yet, or they're new to the game. Maybe it's their second tier or something.
Oh, yeah.
So then they're like, oh, well, if I use this here, and I just like use like 3 Dias, it'll be fine, or something. And you're like, But also burst windows. What do you think about 11? I think syncing up burst is something that people.
The burst windows here I feel like are it's pretty interesting, I think. Though E7 actually has some of the most fun bursts I've ever done in this game. Because you had the burst during the tornado.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Having to go inside the tornado to get raid buffs, that was pretty fun.
Like come in for div. It's
Yeah.
my pinky toe.
Seeing somebody get damaged down and ruin the run at the very end of the fight feels good, man.
Todd, what's your thoughts on optimization for this tier?
Well, so far, like in my static, we've only worked on like just the first 2. It's definitely a lot more fun just trying to like greed and put out as much damage as you can. We're definitely get to work with non-party finder strats. You're never gonna like. I mean, we've been trying to introduce like Rin's rambles. Like when I teach E9S, I'm just as an experiment. Like I take some people from like my chat, and sometimes we get some people from Party Finder come in. I'm like, all right, we're going to do Rin Brambles, and tanks are going to go here, and then healers are going to go up here, and it's going to be really nice for ranged and the healers. Like they're going to have more uptime. They're like, well, is this true north? I'm like, okay, it's going to be like this, but it's a lot of fun with the group. Yeah, with my static.
Okay, yeah. I think that have you done a lot of optimization in previous tiers, Todd?
Probably not as much as Momo and Rin, but yeah, I have done a fair amount.
Okay. Because I actually haven't done a lot myself. I just watch and hear about it. And I I'm just going to say this. Throughout the, since the tier was released, I keep seeing all these cool posts like Ren put up, Momo puts up, like Xeno, like a whole bunch of people put up a whole bunch of stuff out there. And then like I go into Party Finder and it's like, happy brambles. It's just like the most straightforward stuff that was there week 1, and it just hasn't moved.
Yeah, I wish Party Finder would evolve and just step away from week 1 strats. It's unfortunate.
I actually disagree.
Really?
I think that PF sticking to one strat is the best that they can do.
The problem is when you have people that play on other data centers, and each data center's got a different strat.
Yeah.
Which has happened actually this time around.
Well, you just have to.
You go over to Primal and they're all myth, and I think they even had some toxic Party Finders up for a while that were like, if you do happy, like, some gamer words. And then same thing on Aether. It was like, if you do myth.
I actually think myth is the best strat for clear parties, if I'm being honest. Okay. I've seen more
that's a fair
myth strat than happy strat. Like, if you're going for a clear party, I definitely think that myth is the
happy gets very confusing, and people misplacing them is like gonna wipe you pretty much.
I actually think it's kind of fun when people misplace it. I'm like, how am I going to make this work? How am I going to figure this out and position the boss where it's not so horrible for the party and everything else? How can I sort of repair this? I've gotten to that point, to be honest with you, even with like E12. Like, secretly I'm dying inside, but I'm doing my best to enjoy. And when I see people make mistakes, I'm like, let's have fun with it. What else am I going to do? I got nothing but time. And so I don't know. We're getting away from optimization, but I don't think Party Finder's ever going to optimize. I think with speed kills and stuff. I mean, do you guys, I guess I should ask, do you do like really competitive speed kills? Like, do you try to go up on the top ranks for FF logs and everything else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay. So has it been fairly active? I can't imagine it being too active yet because not everybody's geared out, right?
No, people are geared out now. It was like, what, week 5 or 6, Momo, everybody should have been BS if you were running alt runs.
Some people were best in slot week 4.
The problem right now is that it is active, but people aren't going to know about it because there's a lot of teams this tier hiding their logs, hiding their times, not uploading them, not streaming them to be competitive. So it'll look like it's a dead piece of content, but people are just not uploading until the final day, which is totally fine if they want to do it. It just gives the illusion that it's not happening. But, say somebody comes up with some cool tech or a certain comp, or they get skips on this and they don't want other people to know about it, because what'll happen, this happened last year, is people will just steal your strats, run it more times. And if they could execute it great, they get better times. There is still skill involved, but there are people who think that it like takes away from what they did. And that's neither here nor there. It's up to the teams to decide if they want to release their strats or not.
Okay.
When's the final kind day? Of set and pace something new. I would assume if there are job changes happening for Ultimate, that the tier is going to be partitioned for Ultimate release.
Okay. Okay.
Otherwise, it would just be when Echo's introduced for that patch, and they would lock. That's typically how it goes.
Okay.
Momo, you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, you pretty much summed it up pretty well. I don't think any NA team is really hiding their logs right now. No. It's only just EU and GP,
and a lot of the players are commingling too, or like getting more practice on other jobs in Party Finder with other teams. So you'll see somebody will play like White Mage in this team, then they'll go play Scholar in this one, or they'll play Tank on their alt, or Red Mage here and Machinist there, which is nice because you get to practice in a nice controlled environment. Speed kills this time are also very interesting because the fights get short enough that you have to move things around and think about it. But like Momo said, the optimization isn't too bad. Like, they are training dummy fights, but you do have to think about, like, do we have to put up, trick attack on the pull because we're going to lose a use? Or do we have to hold our burst? Do we have to, like, I know Todd's group was struggling at first with the door boss in E12, right? And I was like, hold your trick attack until after you come back from Shiva, because your raid buffs are missing half your party anyway. Which can also be circumvented by people moving around, but that's an easy fix too. So little things like that will change how even groups progging can optimize for the better without too much thought.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about this in a different perspective too, by just roles here. I'm trying to remember, do any of you guys do? I know Ren does some healing. Momo, you've done healing. I don't know if you do healing anymore. Do you do still, Momo?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Frosty.
Okay, I'm just making sure, because I don't know. Sometimes you change things up, Momo.
I haven't switched roles in so many years.
Really?
Been a healer for
Well,
a
you-
while, yeah.
What about FF Log's champion? The best paladin of Eden's
That
Gate.
was just a PF warrior. Okay?
Okay, so
Momo's still the ninja mentor. What are you talking about?
yeah, that's what I was like, yeah, Momo melee, psh, out of my mind. That's where you're categorized in my head. And even though I bring you on healer shows, I don't fucking know why. Anyways, healing this tier, has it been like a fun tier to heal? Momo, this is all you, Mr. Healer.
Well, I mean, Rin also.
Yeah, Brandon Prog did.
No, fuck no, this is Momo.
I am not a healer.
I think it really depends on what you're like looking at, because like Farm and Prog are like two completely different beasts. Prog was a lot of fun, I think, for healing. E9 and E10 weren't too bad, but E11 was definitely like a breath of fresh air. And then you got to the door boss, which was just probably, honestly, the door boss is probably the most healing intensive fight we've gotten probably since God Kefka. It's been a while. Honestly, God Kefka was kind of cheese mode too, because like a lot of the healing in God Kefka actually came from the Forsakens, which kind of dropped you to 1 HP. So it kind of like cheated a bit, whereas like the door boss was like just straight up damage.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like it's can you heal throughout that entire door boss without anyone helping you with mitigation or anything else? Just a healer's taking care of it completely.
If you run 4K piety, maybe, I don't know. You'd have to run quite a bit of piety out of him if you're gonna zero mitigate, zero like any help from the outside.
Oracle though, you got to plan your mitigation. You're gonna die to the relativities.
Yeah.
Okay. The main reason I'm curious is because that's been the biggest issue in Party Finder so far, is healers getting in there and just not realizing how rough it is and not discussing mitigation with anyone else in the party, and it's just never talked about until people.
But they have you.
Kefka.
So they have Divine Veil. They have Reprisal, Passage.
Passage, motherfucker! You know what? It is so hard to get a good passage off. People don't stack. They just fucking spread out.
And you're a melee. What are you doing over there?
And then like it's that little
He's ranged
window,
off of
right?
Narnia. Yeah.
And you have to like hit it halfway through the cast or something. You have to like find that perfect snapshot point, and it's just such a fucking. Anyways, healing. E12S being the big challenge. The rest of the ones before that, they were pretty much just fun. You would say it was like okay to do, but it wasn't a big deal.
I think E11 was definitely.
That was pretty fun.
E11, I think, was pretty healing intensive in the sense that for a third turn fight, like it's not a final turn, right? So they keep that in mind. But for like a third turn fight, I think it's pretty. Especially we ran White Mage Scholar, so maybe I have like a different perspective on it because I know that Astro can kind of like neuter fights, but White Mage Scholar, there was a bit of GCD healing during Prague, especially during the last cycles. The last cycles was.
I still had to do a decent amount with Astro though. I had to put up like Medica 2s to heal through the burns when we were going through cycles.
Yeah, like even like Thunder Cycle of Faith, I'm pretty sure still kills people in PF. Like we lose somebody every time we do it in PF just because no one knows how to mitigate that.
Yep. Throw a shield on like a tank mitigation on them or something, but people won't do it.
Okay. Tanking wise, from my perspective, it's been okay. They tried a couple of things. I think they could have done better. I mean, what do you guys think about tanking this tier?
Pretty fun. Also a little annoying. I really don't like that they keep having bosses that'll position themselves. I really don't like that.
Ooh, okay. Well, how about this? How do you like Oracle? Because that's actually the first boss, and how long that you've had to actually position it for like
move? It's great.
Mechanics, yeah.
It's great. I love it. It's really, really cool. And the proximity damage where it's like Dark Stance will hit the furthest target and stuff, and then like the Tank Buster later is pretty fun. Working around the damage downs is pretty cool. Avoiding them, it's really, really nice. Yeah. But tanking's been lovely. I've done it on Warrior, Dark Knight, and Gunbreaker for most of the turns right now. But I've only done Warrior and Dark Knight in the final turn. But they feel pretty good, pretty engaging. I think Cloud of Darkness is the nicest one if you're a Warrior or a Dark Knight. Avoiding the damage downs during wide angle and anti-air is pretty fun.
Okay. Yeah, it feels pretty good. I've tanked. I've gone back through and I've tanked the first 3. I haven't done 12 yet, so Don't know what that's like, but it does look like a lot of fun with what Ren is saying with the positioning and stuff.
12 is kind of interesting just because I feel like it gets back to that main tank off tank kind of dynamic where only one person really handles the other boss and one person can just be in the background and do whatever. And Paladin is great for off tank. So it's like that's what I'm doing a lot during that fight. I don't know how I feel about it. But, I mean, I also don't like the forced, we have to change just because we got the debuff. Well, I guess one person does this, and then,
Like Powder Mark and stuff?
Yeah, Powder Mark. Well, in, like, E10, you get the debuff.
Yeah, you're forced.
Yeah. And so, it is kind of interesting to see that and kind of be forced. Because Paladin, it's not 100% forced as, like, the off-tank, but it almost makes no sense not to off tank a Paladin there because you get hallowed ground for the first 3 busters, so you only get 1 of those, so you have to use your actual cooldowns other places where the other tanks can use invulnerability for 2 and then use their cooldowns throughout the fight besides that 1 point, right? And so you
also have no regen on your 1, 2, 3, right? And then Spirits Within, you really don't want to get low HP for that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I've had some people in Party Finder, like they demand to be main tank, like when I'm coming in on Warrior, and it's just like they don't really know why. I'm like, well, I can use Home Gang twice here, and it's kind of overpowered. But
that's so good. Oh, it's so good in PF.
But people will refuse because they don't know what to do if they're an off tank.
Exactly. They have no idea.
Yeah. You know what? One thing that was kind of interesting in E10 tanking it. A lot of times, especially mainly with Gunbreakers, I guess. I don't know why. You get the first tank buster and you get the second one. Both of those are invone somehow, unless if they wanted to do a third one. But then the third one comes around. He has to do his mitigation. I take it back as a Paladin, and by the time it comes around, I could do a hollowed ground at the end. But they're like, no, I'll take it back because my invone's going to be up by then. I'm like, why would you take it back? Why does a Gunbreaker? Why do they want to take the boss back early when I could just do a hollowed ground? I guess it could be better for me for DPS.
I know. I'll take it back for that reason from you is because it's less healing that the healers have to do because you're not healing yourself with your natural combo and because you get more damage from your spirits. Then that's why I'll do it. But also, where is the last tank buster? There's a 4th one in that fight.
Yeah,
wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, is there?
There's a 4th one
there
near
is.
the
It's
end.
after the towers, second towers.
Void Gate 2.
There's a second set of towers?
Okay, dude.
Yeah, okay. All right, cool, man.
I forgot there was a second buster.
I have a static
haven't seen
that's
that
good.
in Party Finder. No. I don't see I don't see that last tank buster in Party Finder. That's why I was not remembering. We usually kill it during Void Gates.
Yeah, Ren doesn't get into PF groups because he's never seen Enrage. They kick him.
Please. Week 2, I got into a remove Party Finder, and they're like, have you seen Enrage? And I said, no, not yet. And they kicked me.
Wow.
I just didn't know what it was.
Oh, jeez, man. All right. So let's talk about Melee. So, Momo, you want to talk about this? The Melee perspective here?
I mean, Todd's probably better. All I know is my co-melee.
I know. Stuff. Todd, how's Melee been this tier?
It's been pretty good. I mean, sometimes just for Party Finder's sake, like E9S, I'll have to lose like a GCD or 2. I think that's kind of important to look at because if sometimes with a good group, especially like wide angle anti-air, sometimes you can do a 2-stack and the melee can come in, gap close or whatever. And sometimes like your healers just aren't doing enough, so you gotta stay back with them to make sure everyone lives. So you just have to make that right choice for the sake of the run.
Okay. So one thing that I want to ask about Melee, because I was watching Arthur's stream at one point. He was like, tanks have to do a lot more than Melee throughout a lot of these fights here. Like, for example, E12S, how much does Melee really have to do throughout that fight? It's just really just the little bits of mechanics that everyone else has to do, and then they come back, right? Like DPS overall, I guess, not just Melee.
Do tanks have to do the different stuff besides
they have to do the tank buster stuff? I mean, that's it.
You have the tank buster, sure, and then in Oracle you have the tank busters there, but you never have to handle Blizzard or Eruption. You're just either a stack or you're not. And then in intermediate, everybody's got the same job. Advanced, everybody's got the same job. But I think feels like it's equally spread out.
It looks equal to me, but yeah, I don't know.
I would say the healer's got to put in
the
more
healer's
work.
of course,
Right. Spirit
right?
taker.
Yeah. Which is what we wanted, right? We wanted healers to have to heal. We didn't want it to be just OGCDs, right?
Sure.
Man, I had this show, mini shows about healers complaining about not having to use GCDs. I don't need to hear.
Okay, you know what would make a fun fight? So after you let all 4 clouds in Cloud of Darkness, if that was the damage for the whole fight, that would be cool.
Dude, that'd be insane. That'd actually be. The thing is, I'm pretty sure it's impossible without using Zinc LB for like the second pattern. Like that.
You better bring
it's really funny though. It's funny you say that because like we LB cheese the first part of E9, and honestly that part is scarier than the part afterwards, just because like we skipped the like everything past that point. Like it's actually not as bad as you would think it is. I'm sure you
but having to stay low for each of the anti-air and wide angles and shit, and like
that's
gear swapping in the opener. Well,
good.
That's where Frosty soars because Divine Veil's going to carry.
Yeah,
True.
you know, if fucking it goes off, you got to get a GCD heal for it to go off, man.
That's true. And you're going to do it.
I'm going to clemency, yeah! Just mid-fight, yeah, just throw a clemency up. All right, what about ranged and casters? Is it really... there much more to talk about besides what we talked about with melee with them here? Is there anything special?
I can give you some insight on caster stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm pretty much a caster because I'm playing White Mage Scholar right now, so...
Okay.
I guess give me a question.
No, it's just, how is it for the tier, right? And so does it feel good to be a caster or a range during this tier?
E9 is really fun to do. There's a lot of stuff you can optimize on 9. 2 is just a dummy. 11 kind of the same way. It's kind of just a dummy.
There's a lot of Black Mage adjust strats coming up.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of black. We actually have a few strats for Black Mage only.
Like a Black Mage relative Titan junction.
Okay.
Oh, dude, I am.
Oh,
That's.
But it exists.
So you all adjust to the Black Mage completely?
Well, I would think the most common one's going to be the Brambles.
Okay.
Is manipulation on Brambles, right? Because depending on the setup you have, they can't get over to you. Have you guys modified it at all for that, Momo? Did you have your Black Mage like move over and come in?
We're still doing the strat, the Fey Ren strat or whatever. Yeah, he said he hasn't complained about it, so I'm assuming he's fine with it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of Black Mages that are cool with it, and then some that are like, I want to manip right now, so help me God, I'm going through the Bramble.
Rotation they're using, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of Black Mage adjust strats. I think for range too, I've gotten to play Machinist and Dancer a little bit, and every strat's uptime.
Okay.
Every strat's uptime.
All right.
There's not too much to worry about for that.
I guess the one thing that I would I'd bring into the conversation here is a little bit that it always seems like there's 3 ranged in almost every group. Sometimes I get 2 melee, so the strats are developed with 2 melee in mine. So a lot of ranged have to be a fake melee. Does that matter at all? Do ranged even care about that?
I would give the fake melee spot for like a Bramble. I would give it to your caster, probably.
right. Like especially like a red mage, anything with like a melee combo or something. If you get close, dancer too, probably.
Okay.
Same thing. If you have single melee, you probably want the red mage to be the fake melee in tiles too. And I know for dancer it kind of sucks. In tiles specifically, you have a technical step that comes up. You can't hit it all 8 players if you're using it when it's up.
Exactly.
Okay. You know, we haven't even gone into the fights yet, and we've been in the 30 minutes so far. So this is going to be a long, long show. We plan to be here until tomorrow morning.
Yeah, let's go.
Yep.
I got my pillow right over there.
Nice. All right, so let's talk about strat mentality over. So at least I know Rin and Momo. Llama, you're not out there just like drawing up like strats and stuff. Are you doing a lot of strat development?
Oh no, I'm not quite there yet.
Okay.
But I definitely like being a test dummy or something, or test subject rather. Dummy's good too.
So this tier in developing strats and making strats for each fight, do you feel it's been more enjoyable like coming up with different ways to do the fights and everything else than it was in the previous 2 tiers?
From an optimization perspective?
Yeah, I guess so. Or just like, making the Rin strat, like coming up and seeing that that's possible, like a possible thing. Like every single fight, maybe having other variations that you can do, and it's not like hard coded. You have to do this strat in order to pass it.
I think the really cool thing about this tier is that like literally they took Warrior of Light and made it a Savage fight in a sense because E9, anti-air wide angle, there's 2 different patterns. They end at the same time, but the way you execute them is different. It's the same with E10. The cleaves can happen to different people at different times. E11, the burnt strikes can be different. You can either get knocked back first, landing first, whatever. Like there's a bunch of RNG in these fights. Even the door boss has like a little bit, even though it's not too much. It's the spread or stack at the start and your different tether numbers and stuff like that. Like I think that adds a lot of enjoyability to fights, at least personally to me, because it keeps it, 1, interesting, and 2, it makes it fun to optimize because you have to be able to adjust on the fly and be able to map for different patterns.
Yeah, okay. Paladin had a lot of that in Titan, and I think a lot of people enjoyed Guardian because of its pathing. Instead of the 2 paths before Virus and the 2 paths after. That makes it really fun this year. Getting to just think each turn, nothing's really going to happen the same way except kind of sort of Shadowkeeper, and then if you're a caster or a healer, you really don't like that it could be alternating patterns. You have to move across the arena.
I know some people had issues with that. Some people had issues with Guardian, and I like Guardian, but I understand that people can get frustrated because like having different patterns that end at different times can be annoying for people, especially for certain jobs, like especially Astra, right? Mm-hmm. Like I remember, like I don't know if you remember Titan speed kills, but you actually wiped because if you didn't get a certain pattern, like the other pattern was just so much different in terms of like time difference, right? Like the mechanics happen at different times. It was such a drastic change that groups just ended up wiping if it wasn't the landslide pattern, I think.
You do the same thing with Damning Edict and Chaos, and Leviathan was pretty standard. Voidwalker was pretty standard. Eden Prime was cool. I don't know. Yeah, Titan was probably the only one that tier that really required adjustment. Mm-hmm. And then T, based on your kill times, as you got better at the fight, you had to change your burst timings there too because you'd push things. But yeah, this tier's pretty fun in that it has pathing in it, and I've enjoyed playing tank. I've enjoyed playing healer. I've enjoyed playing ranged. I haven't gotten to play the others yet, but definitely makes you think. I think the big drawback I have right now is E10 sucks because you could mess something up. Well, the fight doesn't suck. I like the fight, but the fight sucks in that you could do something correctly and Todd could forget something, not stat with you, and now you suffer for the next minute.
I've never put damage down on my light party.
Me neither.
Yeah, no one does that. Todd,
but it just sucks that you suffer for it for something you didn't do.
Todd, how do you feel about the strategies kind of in Party Finder? I guess, like, are you seeing a lot of different strategies out there, and you feel like there's a huge variance, or is there just like a handful people have stuck to recently? For me, it's been like a handful, but I only do Aether, so.
Yeah, I'm actually on all 3 NA data centers, so they're mostly the same. What I've seen is Primal. They like to do like Myth strat, Brambles, Aether. They like to do Happy. Crystal does Happy. 10 seems about the same, I think, across the board. 11, I think mostly the same, and then 12, it's like some things are flipped, like with Titan, and just subtle things, but overall mostly the same. Just like, all right, instead of being southeast for like the statues and the laser, like right before statues, it'll be southwest, or like Titan, it'll be DPS east versus west. But not too hard to adjust to.
Okay.
But yeah.
I mean, I've seen a mix, but I usually just, this is lines. Okay, I'll join that because it's familiar. But
right, line and I guess
Billy.
Bilbo. Yeah.
You have Dwayne Titan, or you'd have Dark Shadows, which I laughed the first time. I laughed my ass off the first time I saw that picture because in the bottom right it says uptime strat. As if there's different ways to handle the amount of uptime.
When are you not hitting him? Like I don't. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. That is That is pretty goofy. I guess it means just less movement, so less chance of not having uptime. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. Oh, people have attached uptime to a lot of strats this tier, where they just call it that because it's what they know.
So it sticks, right? You're just like, hey, this is the Frosty uptime strat. All right, let's do it as uptime. Fuck yeah, I like DPS.
Yeah. Me no think only FF logs.
I swear, one day I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna make a fucking guide video for every single fight, and it's gonna be just the Grey Parse guides of how to survive in Party Finder. Just
you should
bare minimum,
and it'll take off.
Yes.
Run to the wall, just stand there and wait. Don't go in for Shiva. Don't try to get that extra hit. Just stand back there at the wall.
Corpse strat.
Yeah.
Main tank, everything. And then when you die, get rezzed, invoke it back.
Yeah.
That's actually brings up a good point, though, because, like, I think one of the big things about some strats is that you kind of have to think about the greedy player, right? Mm-hmm. Especially on NA, there's a lot of people who just go into clear parties or any party and just go for their parses or whatever. So when you do a downtime strat, like Myth, for example, and they join that, they're most likely
become a more dangerous strat.
They're gonna greet it, yeah. And if that's something you have to keep in mind. Like it was the same thing for Light Rampant, right?
Yeah.
People who greeted like Ilya strat. Yeah,
and then what?
That fight.
Ayatori and Sharingan ended up being a safer strat because you could greed while doing it, and it wasn't greed at that point. It was just a strat.
Yeah, it was so easy for me to do Aya because I would just shield lob, right? I just run around and shield lob. I just say fuck it, I don't care. I just don't want to mess up the mechanic and then get kicked out of the group. That's it. That's all I care about. Anyways, let's start diving into these fights before we burn too much time outside of them. So E9S, this is the Cloud of Darkness. For some reason, they're like, let's introduce this new gimmicky mechanic that if players aren't coordinated, they're going to fuck each other over. And so then comes in tiles. So for me, when I first started doing it, when I first started doing E9S, I was like, there's no way they should have done this again. It's the same thing as Ramu, where they just made it strict wall for people who are entering Savage. If you can't figure out how to coordinate with the other 7 players, then you just, can't pass it. But it's not true because DPS check isn't, it's not that big of a deal. So if your healers get past it and somehow survive, they can res everybody and you can still possibly clear that fight, or that's what I've seen. But in general, do you guys feel like this is a good opening fight, or is it too hard, a little too easy? What's your opinions on it?
From a prog standpoint, it's a pretty fair fight.
Okay.
Go ahead, Todd. You've been progging it on multiple data centers.
Well, I was just gonna add, it takes up all 5 of your raid marker presets just to get it started. You spend the first 10 minutes just standing around, like on each marker for tiles, and
it is kind of weird, right?
It is. I wish people, at least for that fight, would just look at a macro. It's easier to look at little diagrams in chat.
But I mean,
I think it would speed it up.
You're right. I think that would be better. NA's like, no. I always get this spot here and this spot there, and it differs between, like, it's not like a static, I'm south, so since I'm the south cardinal, it means I should be in this spot, and this spot for all the mechanics, but that's not, they're just not comfortable with that.
I had a healer leave because they didn't get west. They just, like, nope.
People are very stuck to the spot they want. They did a lot in Voidwalker too, which is weird because the arena, you just turn it around and it's the same thing. I found a little bit of a workaround where, if people are usually open to join a Discord call, but they're not open to use a macro. But they are open to looking at a picture in a Discord and then picking a position off of that. Right. So instead of making it text-based, you just have a picture. You're like, oh, I'll be H2. You're like, gotcha.
If you can look at a diagram, you can read a macro. The same thing.
Yeah,
it's true.
And this is the one fight that really needs it, though. I think, like you were saying,
I think so.
Yeah, it's the most planning out of all of them.
People learned like the first 2 weeks that you can't just have one spot for everything, because the way Brambles innately works, you'd want to put rolls on one half of the arena, but then you have the spread and stack mechanics where you want opposite rolls together, so people can't just have the same spot the whole time. And at first people had difficulty with it, but now they're cool with switching. And so that's where the 5 waymark presets come up. It's like, all right, pick your Bramble spot, now pick your tower spot. And it's like, why wouldn't it just be the opposite of my... All right, let's do this.
And pick your panel spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, now pick your panel spot.
Yeah,
now which way will we
tiles,
rotate?
Towers, panel. Yep.
Which group are you for wide angle? Which group are you for anti-air?
Left and right.
And it can be easily straightforward. I don't see why it couldn't be. But I don't know. Well, who did I interrupt? Interrupt one of you guys.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say for learning. I think like when people can understand, once they get up to tiles, like the fight repeats until the healer LB3 strat at the end, and then you should get the win.
Okay.
Like it just learn those. Learn like if you can learn the Brambles.
So let's
the
talk
tiles.
about Brambles.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Brambles. Brambles. People based their strat off of what was going on in the World First race. I think they copied what Happy's group was doing, and just kind of stuck with that and called it Happy Bramble. Even though someone else brought it up, and I think not everybody agreed to that strat, they just kind of did it because it was something that worked to get past it. And I just started seeing it everywhere. It was like Happy Brambles here and there and everything else. But it has its flaws, but it still hasn't gone away. Is there a reason why people are not moving from Happy Brambles to like Bryn's uptime here? Okay.
The reason is because there are good strats, there are bad strats. These are all on quotes, and then there are the strats people learned. Okay. And if somebody learns something first, the other strats are bad. Unless there's somebody who wants to optimize and wants to change and will actively try to set up a party finder for a different strat themselves, most of Party Finder is just going to stay the same with whatever they learned. And you're going to look and you're going to go, oh, Happy Bramble, Myth Bramble, Happy Bramble, Happy Bramble. I'm probably not going to learn Myth because all these other parties are doing Happy, so it would be pointless to learn Myth this week and learn Happy next week. I'm just going to do Happy. And that's typically what you'll see, is people will just, whatever's flooding the market, that's what they're going to learn. Whatever resource exists first. So, Happy put out the Happy Brambles footage so you could learn from it first, even though they themselves didn't end up... They end up modifying. I think they do Square now, but it doesn't matter. It was already there, and it's what people already learned, and it's what they stuck to. And then the same thing happened on Primal, but they learned Myth Brambles, so then Party Finder flooded with that. So that's what they do. You do see Rin Brambles. You see them in like optimizations, or in speeds, or like other groups that are working in static environments. Or you'll see a lot of people that are like, after we clear E12, we'll go back and change a strat about a different fight that has nothing to do with E12, which is weird, but okay. But you do see Rin parties popping up. More of them are like late night. And the diagrams are very easy. And I'll try to join those parties when I can to answer questions for people who don't know. And I mean, I haven't seen any party I've joined. It's probably been like 40 or 50 parties that I've joined with that strat where they haven't picked that up in more than 3 pulls. So
I mean, how hard is it to really change what spot you drop the Brambles to?
It is easier to learn a new strat than it is to change muscle memory. I think.
Not even everyone knows where to put their seeds like in Happy. They say they know Happy, but like they put their seeds wherever. Sometimes
that's true.
It seems.
It's funny when we're talking about Brambles. And I mean, when I first started learning that fight and everything, I stayed safe. I waited till the tether came out before I started to move. But now I know, hey, I got the purple circle, I can move now, right? That's kind of the thing. No one does it. They just wait till those heathers come out. Even like on re-clears and everything else, they refuse to move until those heathers come out.
Yep.
Like
or they'll try to move. They'll try to move for the east-west adjustment or anything. They'll try to move late after the purple aura has already locked them into the bramble they were trying to get away from.
Yeah, and like, look, it was right. It was right. I don't. You saw me there. Yeah. No.
Yeah, but it's not even necessarily about uptime versus downtime either. You also think about how strats interact with subsequent mechanics, right? Like people will say that Brambles has nothing to do with wide angle and anti-air, but it does, because you have to cross them to get to whatever side you're going to. If you misplace something, or you put the happy brambles too close, or you put any brambles too close or too far, you're either going to cut somebody else off on the edge or towards the middle when you have to spread. So you do have to know the mechanic and how it interacts with the rest of the fight and what you're doing to the other players. You might think you're fine. You're like, look, I got plenty of space here. And you look over and you're like, but that guy's fucked.
Right.
Yeah. So it is kind of fun. I was telling you guys this before. It is kind of fun from a tank perspective when people mess those up, and I just have to figure out how to adjust the boss to kind of give everybody a little bit of room and make it work. But it's still a pain. You know what's the worst? For some reason, I see this every once in a while where people, it's like a line of brambles, right? Between two groups, the left and right side. They just line them up so you have to run all the way around. And they're like, oh, sorry.
I see that sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're being a really good tank. Not every tank will actually look around at the seeds and adjust the boss to leave room for like people on the flanks and stuff.
They'll put it in the same spot, face it
in
north
the same spot
every single time.
Rotate it, make it worse. Actually,
I mean that's to be honest, that's one of the things I do like about Party Finder. Is because it's such a mixed bag of what the fuck that you can figure out ways to try to make things better and have fun and repair situations, and I like that.
That's true.
Except
Makes
for
you
when
a better
I'm
player.
progging. I guess when I'm trying to like clear it, it kind of gets old, but I do always have a lot of fun trying to adjust. Like, oh man, I had so much fun when people would die. What was it? Is it Worm's Lament when you get the stacks of red and blue? Is that the right one or is that a different one? Yeah.
Right.
When people would die on that, I'd be like, oh man, I hope I fucking get both. I hope I get a red and a blue and I can fucking ace this and it will be perfectly fine. It doesn't matter if someone died. Because it's a little extra challenge. Whatever. If I mess up, well, it's his fucking fault anyways. You know, whatever. It does suck every once in a while, though, when two people try to adjust and then you die. Like someone makes a mistake and then you have to. Okay, so I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry, and we're going into completely different fights here. I'll talk more about the E12 stuff that I have fun with later on, because despite me being angry all the time about that fight, there are moments that make me laugh in Phase 1. It's like a spectacle. Or not a spectator sport, right? You just like do your part, then you look around. Who's gonna fuck up, right? You just
right.
Yes.
just watching it happen.
I wish we had spectate mode. People to join, just watch, comment.
You want spectate mode? Go do Titan Unreal.
Titan Unreal is savage as fuck. Solo tanking that because your other tank got yeeted in the first minute.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Brambles is a mechanic. It's a good mechanic, right? It has ways to kind of interact with the rest of the fight, like you were saying, Ren. So for Savage, I think it's pretty good. It just makes a good core part of the fight that you have to learn how to deal with. And it comes back a few times, right? Well,
I actually really like
times?
Brambles as a mechanic
like
because it's what I call like an environmental mechanic. And what that is things that you either do or place around the arena to do mechanics. So like Bramble, for example, but Alexander, the creator, had a bunch of those, right? He had the lava platforms, judgment crystals, A10S buttons, A11S towers. I think all those are like really cool additions to Raid, and I wish they would add them more often because it makes one, progging them really fun, and two, optimizing them really fun.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think that's actually absolutely the direction they were taking, at least with E9. I felt like they were testing the water with some things with those mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
You saw kind of... So this is a small theory, going a little tangent again. Back to E2 with the spell and waiting. They were testing kind of how that would work and how they could make that like work out as a mechanic. And then they brought it back in full force for E12. And I think that was the right choice because a lot of people were upset they didn't really get to do as much with it as they were showing in E2. And so,
I thought they were going to go way further with it. I was very happy. I've been wanting that all expansion is more spell and waiting stuff.
Yeah. All right, so let's anti-air, wide angle, fun little triple mechanics, right? Just a little dance.
Teaches you tank busters, teaches you to stack with your party, teaches you to stay away from the boss and then come back.
Yeah.
Teaches you can't keep melee distance for that, but you could zero it out, which is kind of cool. Overall, it's not bad.
I actually don't like anti-air as a mechanic.
Okay.
and some people like it because of the, I guess, the mystery of it. But when we were progging that, we figured it out pretty fast, but it was still kind of a pain in the ass to see what was going on because your screen literally just got exploded with like lights, right?
Yeah, you had to like local record and then like play it back slowly to see where the safe spots were. I agree that was kind of like a shit fest of lights, but I think I don't like it for Party Finder because of what they ended up doing. I think any strat Party Finder develops in which a role will hate their role for the next 6 months sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tanks have to like be really far away from the boss for anti-air. It's pretty stupid.
Yeah, right. Tomahawking.
When we progged that mechanic, the first thing we noticed was it's a different type of buster. Either it was a short conal cleave or it was a big circle, right? And we didn't make it 8 out of 8 alive first a couple times, so we didn't realize that like the healers were getting a smaller one, the tanks were getting a huge one. As soon as we realized that, we're like, okay, look at the arena, look at the boss. Big tank here, healers here, and move up. Just innately makes sense. It wouldn't make sense to put a healer here. Tanks can fuck off. We don't know what the DPS check is. It's prog.
Right.
So it just made sense to try to give everybody as much uptime as we could. So at first we did like healers side by side and move up over. And then after we were like, well, the tanks can even come closer if we just put a healer with the melees and a healer with the ranged, and then they move up after. And then, after we stopped caring after week 1 about like the enrage or anything, it's both tanks over here and invuln, and you have a healer and the healer with like white mage preferably with the melees can just like lily up after instead of having to get all the way across the arena after you dodge your brambles. Just little things like that. I think sometimes I think about that and I'm like, how do other people not see these solutions in Party Finder when they're like, just make the tank go away. We're done.
Just fuck off tanks. I will say Paladin does kind of get a boost there because of their timing with their request a cat and getting that out with their holy spirits and all that great stuff. But I mean, that will go back to my complaint.
That's probably part of it, though, right? They're like, only one tank has to suffer. The other tank has wreck. We're good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the other thing is Paladins are fucking rigid, right? And so if like you miss a GCT or you miss something just a little bit there, they're fucked too. And so it's always been a little goofy at that part. At least progging it and going through it and getting used to it. Once you have it like down pack, it's not a big deal. But I don't know. Maybe I need to change jobs, dude. Maybe I need to change to something that's just like straightforward. Oh, I messed up. Whatever. I just keep going. Paladin, you mess up.
Wide angle's really cool though.
Well, wide angle.
Wide angle's easier. It's nicer.
It is.
It still teaches you. It teaches you the same mechanics pairing up with people, but you don't grief anyone doing it. I think.
What's interesting about wide angle anti-air is that they're legitimately the same 2 mechanics. It's both. It's wall at one point, stack, and
disengage.
Yeah. It's just in different orders, right? And then the anti-air is it's a circle AoE instead of a line, but they're pretty much the same 2 mechanics in that regard, which is funny because like in hindsight that would have been really good knowledge during prog. Like when
instead of trying to remember exactly what they did, instead of just these are just reversed.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the fun part here with tiles. How do you feel tiles that mechanic exists? Do you feel happy they put that in there? You wish they wouldn't have put something in there so trolling?
I love it.
You love it?
Do you? Oh, it makes for good content.
I love it. It's so good.
Tiles are
to
really
see
good
people
PvP.
Die.
They're really good
so
PvP.
Good. It's such good content.
It's a test of patience.
Reminds me of Clamp. You guys remember Clamp?
The Clamp was awesome.
Yeah, I remember.
Barely.
Camp. Although that fight was taken down in one pool, I think. So it was kind of...
it's just...
I do like that they're interacting more with the arena, right? Titan raised the arena. This one drops it. And then they have half room cleaves, and you gotta piece together the puzzle, like one of those sliding puzzles. You have a piece missing, you just gotta move everybody along. That's cool. But there are people who will not pay attention to anybody other than me, myself, I. And I'm sure this happens to Todd probably way more than it happens to me on a tank. He'll be getting a positional or something, and then suddenly people close in on him for a mechanic, and he's locked in his spot for much longer than he was supposed to be.
Yeah,
he's just going to take
the range usually will come in and I like before I reset.
So you know, it's funny. When I was going for clips at the beginning of the show, I was looking at yours, Todd, and one of the tiles won. I decided not to use it because it made you look good. One of the tiles won. You basically yours was running out, and you were waiting, and the guy didn't move. You ran into his spot real quick and ran back, and he fell and died, but he didn't.
I know that one. I'm like, oh my, that's the punishment. Like, well, he's gonna box me in.
And
like,
you had a
this is
straight
happening.
face the whole time, like, "Yep, that's what you get," and you just kept going. You didn't even care. You didn't think about it. It was just solid.
No, I knew exactly what I was doing. Yeah, that wasn't an accident. I was like, well, you didn't let me reset. This is happening.
yeah. So that was pretty good. You know, it is fun. It is a fun mechanic. I feel like this is something that's fun to try to figure out, but it is pretty bad to learn at first for people who don't know what they're doing. It becomes a wall, and a lot of people in Party Finder don't have the time to really dedicate to learn it. And so you have to just make sure that all 8 people have an idea of what they're doing. But you can get past it. I mean, the other part is like bad DPS plays a part here, and it puts all the weight on ranged and healers. And I mean, tanks and melee can kind of swing in and get those clouds and everything else. But if
that problem is if the ranged and healers are bad and they're too slow and they don't let the cloud pass a little bit, the melees can't help.
Yeah,
and then it sucks because they can't assist. The clouds are an interesting mechanic, and we knew they were going to come because World of Darkness had them, and it's just nice knowing you can let 1 or 2 through even in Prague and survive.
Right.
But it can be rough.
Party Finder also has a tank south often, so I think one melee might miss a lot of positionals there. They might run out of True North uses or something. That's kind of annoying. You can move a tank to the west, but then you have to change the range and healer, and some people just can't grasp that.
Yeah, I haven't been asked yet. I just go south every time. I don't even.
I think best setup is to have, if you have a white mage, put the white mage south, put the caster north. That way they don't have to move as much for the half from cleave, and then you put tank north, tank west. That way, most Party Finders like to clockwise rotate.
Right.
So when you do that, the 2 tanks are in front, the 2 melees are in the back, and each person's paired up with somebody who's not as strong to kill their cloud. Like if you have a summoner who has trouble killing their cloud, your main tank, good chance they're a warrior or a gunbreaker. They could put some pretty strong potency moves there. And then if you have your ranged, if you have a dancer, they're probably going to blow it up. If you have a bard or something, then the paladin and the bard are just going to look at each other and cry, and it's going to be fine. But it's really not that bad if you set it up like that. Then you at least still have, a healer on each side of the arena that can cover everybody that they need to. If you have a summoner or red mage north, so you've got a reser covering each quadrant. I think it works out nicely. It's just really about when you reset those tiles and paying attention and knowing that the moment yours turns, pinkish purple, it's not going to fall immediately. You can wait a second for somebody to get out of your way, but not much more than that.
Yeah, that's the thing I see the most. People panic when the tile turns like pink. When you have I think it's 6 seconds.
You have a lot of time.
Yeah, 6 seconds. Yeah. It's like 2 or 3 pulses on the ground if you're looking at the animation.
Well, I will say something that you're talking about is everybody thinking about me, myself, and I. When it comes to clouds, that's completely irrelevant because I feel like a lot of people, especially in Party Finder, when they're joining in, they're like, I never have to help with clouds, so why do I have to help now, right? And so they never.
I hear that so much.
Yeah,
I hear that so much. You'll have because it'll be the same 2 people in a quadrant, right? The melee will be like, I never have to help, and the healer is like, I never have to do it.
Right.
You're like, well, one of us needs to.
Yeah, it's always one of those situations like, oh, you're not good enough, so why do I have to make up for you? And that attitude just doesn't work in Party Finder if you want to have a better time. You figure out a problem and you try to fix it.
That whole phase is teamwork, right? Tiles is teamwork the game.
Yeah.
It's trust fall.
It is trust fall.
It is.
Yeah. But we did have the one note here about Momo figuring out how to cheat the clouds and everything else. Can you explain that a little bit?
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like that was pretty obvious. I kind of just. I mean, that's the first thing you do when you see an ad, right? It's just can you ignore it? And if you can, then you just keep going.
Okay.
I guess. I mean, it
party
not like,
finder
it
thinks
wasn't like
they need to
some.
immediately zerg it.
It wasn't like some big brain thing. It was just like, oh, can we live this? Oh, we can. The hardest part was figuring out mitigation.
Okay. I mean, you were talking about using a. Is that where you use Tank LB? Or do I have that?
No, you would.
No,
You would never do that.
I was
You'd
just.
kill the
I was about to
class
say,
with
like,
LB.
what, so you're just saying, like, how many do you let in? You let in like 1, 2, 3,
4.
4. You let in 4. So I actually don't know.
Average party finder group would
spicy.
probably let in 1 or 2,
Yeah.
Right.
if you
Yeah,
can't
you could
account
let
for other
one
people's
in.
mitigation. I
We
think
actually had
you
a
probably
PF
initially
too.
find it out by an accident, right? Like if a group's progging and they have a death and a cloud goes in, then you're like, wait, this wasn't lethal. This actually didn't even hurt that much.
I mean, that's actually kind of how we figured it out too. It's like we saw the damage up stack during prog a few times, and it was 1, and the AoE only did like 20% more damage, and we figured out that like each stack is like 20%. So it's like, oh well, this is only going to do like just as much as terminal velocity does in O12. So we just mitigate this and keep going. And as long as we have a fast enough kill time, like ignoring the. I'm pretty sure it doesn't actually affect towers. We thought it did at first, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't because we've lived.
I think the tower's a
tower.
true damage.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're like environmental or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But as long
Just
as you
damage
skip
that
that
comes from
second
her.
pattern, or the third pattern, the one after the towers, the wide angle anti after towers, you can pretty much let all in as long as you're mitigating properly. But I wouldn't do that in PF or in a static.
I mean,
to be
that's
honest,
why-
unless you know what you're doing.
That's why I'm saying it, because like I
God,
never
no.
had to even question it. It was like you killed a cloud, so we're kind of fucked because we just don't
Yeah.
have people who mitigate anything.
No.
I mean, PF dies to 1 stack. Like that deluge of darkness, like it does more than your max HP usually without mitigation.
Yeah.
So, like most people
Yeah.
don't even,
Yeah,
most
it'll
PF
nuke
people
you.
don't even reprisal that. Like it just goes unmitigated like every
Right.
time. It's
Yep.
so.
And you have both
that. I've
reprisals.
seen that.
Well, assuming somebody reprisals a spread stack, then you have 1, but you don't
I'm
not
gonna
have
be
it.
honest. In PF, man, you have 1 reprisal, your
You got
tank's
1 per
reprisal.
fight.
That's true.
Yeah, and they use it to start. Never again.
That's true.
No. What I mean more is that the tanks just reprisal the
yours.
same fucking thing every time.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yes,
overlap.
yes. You'll see yours and it'll be white and then it turns blue and you're like,
Yeah, you're like, whatever. I guess Scott, you know.
and then you try to change it and they also try to change it. You're
Yeah,
like,
and then it's nothing the next exactly.
It is, I mean, to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter until you get into like E12, because it takes more time to talk about it than it does just to do it and go through it. Usually,
I think reprisals are pretty important if your team is still freshly geared in like cycles of E11. It could hurt really bad there.
guess that's true.
That was really rough.
But you don't talk about it until someone dies.
That's true.
Until you
And then
wipe-
you're like, what did we miss?
Oh, I guess I could reprisal.
All right, guys, open
I
up the
guess.
live log. What did we miss?
Optional.
They say that and you
just
just
quiet.
ready check.
Yeah, it's just
Just
ready.
go again.
Oh, so I'm going to tell you this experience in Party Finder recently. We're in E12S, and we died to a mechanic that needed mitigation. And the scholar came out afterwards. He's like, "Okay, let's talk about this. What can we do here?" And the ninja, I forget if it was a ninja or a bard or something. They're like, "I don't fucking know. Just heal." And it's just like,
just heal.
It has been a long time since the name of the game has been healers take care of everything.
Oh my
More
God.
than ever, the party takes care of mitigation.
it's so.
Or can.
Where's your healing, bro?
I think that's what I'm talking. Like, people just aren't trained with mitigation anymore. It's just, anyways. I thought it was funny. I was like, man, I don't know about this part. It was one of those signs. It was like, I think that's a sign, like, you know, Jeff Foxworthy or whatever. That's a sign to fucking leave the group and
Here's
go
your
out
sign.
to another group. Anyways, we were talking a little bit about this, Ren, and we see a clones in E9S. It pops up. You know, we have you look at this one and you look at another one and you kind of figure out the last one and then you find the safe spot for the
Yeah, so
cleave.
she'll turn arbitrarily. You can't move her. She'll do a left-right cleave, and then 2 of the clones will show up. They're like, 2 Slimers from Ghostbusters that look like her, and they do a left-right cleave as well. They'll mimic whatever she's doing, and from that you have to figure out the pizza slice that is not broccoli pizza. You want the pepperoni pizza. And sometimes Party Finder can handle it just fine. Sometimes they can't. But it's weird because it shows up for all of a couple of seconds and then it's gone. That's it. It's done. And it's just a really awkward mechanic And like Momo was saying before, it's scary because you're like, all right, who's going to try to greed and not move on time? I'm not going to say it's the Black Mage. I'm definitely not saying it's going to be the Black Mage. But you're just like, who misread it, right? Who misread this mechanic? It's really weird because that's it. Then the mechanic's over and it's done.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to see it pop up more often, I think. I do agree with that.
Or just do something else with it. Maybe they can cast something that you have to interact with. I don't know.
I don't think we messed that mechanic up once. It's just every time we get there, I just get so nervous.
You know what? Yeah, I used to have a couple issues with it, but then like I figured out I just need to pay attention to 2, and you usually get it because then there's just only like a little bit left to have to figure out.
So somebody else will figure out that other piece.
Yeah, someone else will figure out.
Right, you just
there's a lot of
with
tools
Dorito.
too. I think this tier more than any. There's so many tools, so many people that are trying to put out videos or diagrams, toolboxes. You'll see a bunch of toolboxes that are all just the same thing. They just rename it for their own static or their groups.
Yeah.
Websites that have things. You have like the shadow cleave from E10. You have a test that you can go in, like a website, and you move your character
can move your
and
mouse
show you
or
a
your
few.
character. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have the same thing for the clones, so you can figure that out too. And it's kind of interesting seeing all these like basically like passion projects, right? You didn't have this back in Heaven's Ward, back in A Realm Reborn. You didn't really even have FF logs.
No, I mean,
I don't even think ACT was the only thing. There was like a different combat tracker that was really bad. I don't even remember its name anymore.
It was like FFXW something, yeah.
Yeah. And now we've got all these projects and all these nice tools and stuff. Like I put out the mitigation calculator for, you could figure it out for the Cloud of Darkness stack, so you could do it for like the E10 Jumpy Dog mechanic. We have all these different tools that people are putting out, and it's nice to try to just educate the community. It's really really cool.
I agree completely. I'm gonna put one little theory on the clone thing real quick. I think it was only there to get people's minds wrapped around E10. Just give them a precursor to
like a stepping stone introduction.
Yeah, like, oh, there's going to be cleaves and there's going to be their side, one side of them or something, and you can kind of like piece that together and thread those two fights together a little bit. That's my only guess. I don't know why else.
In normal mode, they were there, but it was during tiles, and they cleaved a section of the tiles that don't exist in Savage.
That's what I was thinking.
It was just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was weird.
I guess
I actually think they
it is what it is.
I think they meant to add them to Savage. I think they were gonna have them cleave the outer side of the tiles and force you to be inside, like the in mechanic.
They just couldn't get it to work properly, or maybe it was too
probably
difficult and they cut it.
Yeah.
I haven't done 9 normal in so long that I don't remember anything about it, to be honest with you. I completely forgot about that fight, because after you do like the normals, like the first, if you get crafted gear, which most people do, it's relatively cheap to get crafted gear at the moment.
This tier, yeah, you just do them on an alt to get through to get Savage, or you've already done them on your only character, and that's
it's kind of sad. Like those normals just Wondrous Tales. Maybe I don't know if they put the current one in there. I can't. I don't really know.
There's so many options in there. You have like 3 different PvPs. Why wouldn't you do those?
Why? Well,
You sit there for a while.
Not the show.
Frosty,
not the
you
show.
made a good point earlier. You said that they brought in that the club mechanic is the Shiva mechanic, right? It's the basically a Shiva mechanic. And actually, it's kind of funny because they actually kind of beat it into the ground. I think this tier, the Shiva mechanic.
You mean with the cleaves?
Well, because like
the mirror
E10's got the
mechanic.
Shadow Dogs, you've got Prismatic Deception, you've got also the jumps just in like shifting and sundering, right?
Yeah, the safe quadrant.
No, yeah. Like just cutting out areas of the arena and everything else. Yeah, and so I mean they kind of introduced that because they do a lot of it. The mirrors, I completely forgot about that. Or books, I don't know what you call them in E11, the big blue and red things. They're just so let's talk about this for a second. All right, what the fuck are they? Are they mirrors? In E11? What are the 4 fucking things? Are they books, walls?
What do we call them?
Blasty wall.
Windows?
Yeah, windows, stained glass.
And then they got the hourglasses, but it's not an hourglass. It's like 3 fucking bulbs, and they just.
The traffic lights?
Yeah, they're trying to create new
traffic.
objects.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Stoplights,
traffic lights. Yeah.
Because you like just look for the yellow, and they're like, well, there's yellow tethery clocks, and there's yellow traffic lights, and just pick something. Where do the green ones come in?
Anyways, anything else you guys want to talk about with E9. I feel like it's after that it's pretty much straightforward. They throw in the meteors, but
it's a repeat. Oh, I do want to mention something. The towers. So when you get to the towers at the end, which is your second set of brambles,
when you say towers, that's so weird to me because it's meteors to me, man.
There are meteors, but a lot of people aren't going to call them that now because they're physically standing in things that people have just been calling towers.
There's no towers there.
No, there isn't. But there's also no meteor coming down on the ground.
Is there not? There's an orb or something coming down. So
people do not look up. People do not look up.
Okay.
When you get to the second brambles with the AoE you stand in, they are slightly more east and west. They're slightly more horizontal set than vertical. So a lot of groups will break. They'll just do north to south. And this is fine for Myth Brambles, and Happy's probably okay too. If you do the Rin Brambles, though, you're probably going to see an issue where you do north to south. You're like, this strat sucks because I have to go all the way around the Bramble to get in the tower. Because they think they're symmetrical and just something is wrong about it. But because they're east-west, you should break your parties east to west. And when you break your tether, you will physically already be standing in your tower. The one that you need to be in. And it solves itself. Literally just solves itself first try.
Too much thought. You got to lower
Well,
the
I was
thoughts
thinking
per
about it
second,
after.
man.
We were looking at the strats and how everything came out, and I was like, it almost seems like they might have designed an X pattern for this. Otherwise, why did they offset these meteors?
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to think about it from a designer standpoint, because you never really know how the devs intended us to figure things out, right? More often than not, we do it something completely different from how they wanted us to, right? You have like same side Tsunami Leviathan and all kinds of stuff, and they're like, "This isn't. Please stop. What are you doing? Uptime? How did you do this?"
Have you seen the video of like the person watching someone put blocks into the same hole over?
Yeah, I've seen that.
That's right. It goes in the square.
No, it's triangle. It's triangle.
Yeah. Yeah. That got linked recently in the like every Savage Raider.
That's right. It's the square hole.
But yeah, no. I would. They do every once in a while come out and they'll say, "Well, I didn't really intend you guys to do it this way," and they talk about it. Hopefully, we'll see some of that in the live letter. I don't know if they will or not. Which is 2 weeks, man. Just 2 weeks, and we're gonna fucking get a new expansion and and it's a lot of information. Like the announcement is like 4 hours long, 5 hours long, something like that. And then
wait till they tell us that the game is ending and Final Fantasy 16 is the next chapter.
Let's go.
We're gonna release Ultimate, right? The information, at least when it's.
Well, I mean, they have the live letter right after that. So yeah, I'm assuming so.
Maybe not the details, but they should give us a pretty good release date for
An image.
3.
A release date would be the most. I don't
5.5.
I think we
They're
kind
not
of
gonna
already
give
have
a
a good
release
idea of
date.
what it might be, but a date would be the only thing I want.
Mid-April. They're going to say mid.
I mean, that's
early
what
or
I
something.
want.
Yeah. I need to know that personally for other reasons. But yeah. Okay. So, anyways, good tangent. Let's go back to E10. Let's talk about E10 now. E10 is probably the I think most hated fight I've seen in a while. People just hate doing it. Personally, I'm kind of okay with the fight for my own reasons, but how do you guys feel about E10S?
It's okay.
Actually, I went through some phases with E10. It went from one of my favorite fights outside of Door Boss to actually my least favorite now.
Okay.
What changed your mind?
It's just a really boring fight on farm, I think. Yeah.
It is.
It's actually, I would argue that it's on farm. I would say it's actually probably one of the worst this entire expansion.
Just in general, I think in general, for a very specific reason, it cast locks on a lot of mechanics, so you literally can't kill it till it completes a mechanic. I know she's got a dark sword, but that doesn't mean she can use Living Dead. Apparently it does. Apparently it does mean she can use Living Dead.
Right. Yeah. It does.
But her and the door boss suffer from that same problem, which is fine unless you're assuming it's going to die and then it doesn't. You don't heal for something and then you wipe. Or you're trying to speed and your party's kill time is right where it would cast lock. And it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Responding to chat, it's a she.
It is. It's one of the NPCs, I think, that's in Crystarium
You can find her in
or something.
Crystarium.
Yeah. There's lore back there.
It's like the fight starts, it does its implosion, right? And then, or whatever the back one is called, does the shadow mechanic. and then it does the get up mechanic, and then it does a right left slash, and then it does a buster into shadow cleave. Then after that, it's like a full minute of just nothing because it just does that left right but on 4 people. So if you've already seen that mechanic, just adding 4 more and then putting it on DPS so you have to place them, which was cool.
It's a nice prod gimmick, right?
But there's nothing else going on for like I kind of wish they made you do something if you're the other team, because you're just kind of standing inside the hitbox for like 15 seconds or something, doing nothing. And then you would expect it to like ramp up after that, but it does the knockback into Umbral Orbs, into the spinny dog Umbral Orbs. And then it does Fade to Shadow, which is kind of cool, but
is it
kind of like
once
whatever.
You figure out that you could just use 2 spots,
right? Yeah, that's
because talking about specifically about farm, I don't even think it's that cool. And if your party goes the wrong way, you're gonna miss 90s there. Like if you have a Brotherhood and half the party goes the other direction, they're just gonna miss it.
Yeah, and then it just after that, it just kind of does the 4, which is cool. The 4 thing is cool, I think, but they don't do it again in the fight. Actually, the next time a shadow mechanic happens, it's a 2, because it's right after the Umbral Orb set with the knockback.
And then they do a 4 afterwards. They do a 4 after that.
No.
There's.
Oh, the cleave.
Yeah, no, there is a 4. There's a 4 for second void gates.
The right left slash cleave.
You drop pitch bog and then you get Yeah, you get the left
tempo doesn't really ever increase in a sense. It just kind of stays mid or flat, I guess, after like 3 or 4 minutes of the fight.
And in half the patterns for that cleave and implosions and stuff, you could just make one movement from like one diagonal to another.
Yeah.
It's
and
then obviously there's JP Void Gate, but
yeah,
or not JP, but sorry, I meant the Void Gate too.
Void Gate,
well, JP Void, that's because that's the only strat that should exist.
Yeah.
any other strat's griefing everybody.
Well, so Todd, Ren, I went together with you guys not knowing anything about this fight at all. That was our experience. I went in there not knowing anything, and we got to enrage 0.1%.
We did.
You did really well.
And I didn't know fuck shit in that fight. I didn't know anything. I just listened.
But you broke it down piece by piece.
Yeah. But then, I felt bad. And so the next week I went through and I did a week. This was a week worth of doing Party Finder, learning the fight and figuring it out and understanding everything about it. And I'll let you know that whole prog, I think I told Rin, but I don't think I told you, Todd. The reason I was having issues with shadows is because I had no clue that the shadow part meant it was the tail. I couldn't comprehend what was happening there.
Oh,
so
right.
It's just like, oh, fuck, what's going on with my head? But I will say, for me, that fight is stressful. I have stress at 2 points. Void Gate, 1. Actually, that might be then the wall. The wall is stressful too.
The wall.
Yeah, but Void Gate 1, because I will be facing in a puddle somewhere in the front, and I have to flip what he's doing in my head, and that process sometimes doesn't work every time. And so that's the only
that
thing.
was why I provoked the boss off you there, to keep her facing true north, so you can kind of have a little bit of an easier time. Because when she's like diagonal and stuff, people get really confused.
Yeah.
I'll see Party Finder just kind of guess.
Yeah.
It messes with people.
But I mean, let's talk about this, because I mean, I think that's an interesting concept, sort of, to do shadows and everything else. It's a little refreshing in a way, but then again, it was beat into us throughout this entire tier. Having the players kind of set up that safe spot, I feel like you were talking about, if they mess up, they punish everyone else.
Oh, that's 8 damage downs during a 6-minute burst window. So it's awful.
So I don't know how you feel about that, where players have mechanics that screw other players over, but I feel like that's just part of how raids work, right? No?
It's punishing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
I think it's good, yeah. I mean, it can be annoying, and I understand the frustrations with it, but I feel like if there was no punishment, it'd be too easy.
Yeah, like Volt Stack, you would just cheese it.
You could just have
the problem is
die.
you could grief, though. You could just punish the other people every single time because you want to.
Yeah.
I've been in parties where somebody has purposely avoided the stack to give them damage downs, so that they can make the fight go a little longer for themselves.
I mean, E10 is actually a great example of that. I remember the tanks. I remember some tanks actually. Was it the tanks? I don't remember. There was one part where you could kill another person because you wanted to extend the kill time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people would.
Which fight are you talking about?
E1.
Oh, E1. Yeah, you would beam other people.
Oh, is that what it was?
I don't know. I wouldn't have any knowledge on that.
Does it protect the tank part?
I did that tier a lot. Yeah, you would do that, or you would turn the rotating beams and meteors, so it would hit some people, and you'd know the direction it's going, so you could avoid it. I wouldn't really know too much on this, though. It's just speculation. Just thinking back on it, like it was yesterday.
Well, I will say this kind of goes back to what you were talking about before, Momo, where the shadow cleaves is something that's environmental that the players control, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of interesting at that point that the members can kind of work with. I mean, there's only one pattern. You have a safe box in the middle, right? There's no other fancy stuff you can really do with it. But it does mean you put mechanics that are happening in the fight in the hands of other players. And so going into Party Finder, and if you see them fuck up, but you see there's a small little fucking spot you could run into, you feel like a champion if you get in that small spot, don't you?
That's true.
Catch it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Raid awareness.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I like so far about that fight, is that just kind of working with the other players and making it work. Although when you get to Void Gate, it's one player messes up, it's pretty much, sometimes it's not done, but it usually snowballs pretty bad, especially Void Gate.
The DPS check is liberal, but if you miss more than one, you're going to get that doom. That.
Yeah, that's just straight up. It's so funny.
It's three for a doom, so you can actually miss 2 towers. Yeah,
you can miss 2 towers.
Okay. But if they pretty much they have like a limit. They're like, well, we'll kind of punish you, make you not look cool if you're damaged or anything. Then like, fuck it, you're just dead. Just kill them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're just like hard cut off of how much they're really gonna put up with you fucking up, which is kind of weird, but I guess fine. I don't know. Do you guys?
I mean, I would rather have a full team damage down than a full wipe, like remove towers.
100%, 100%. Especially when we find out that in some situations it's avoidable.
Yeah, like conflag, like those kind of mechanics that just wipe your group if you mess up like one little thing.
Conflag.
I think is
it wiped my damage every.
At least early Savage fights, I don't think they belong. I think the third and fourth turn, I think, can be more, I guess, reserved with them, but I don't
like Oracle. Oracle does a good job at wiping you if you fuck up.
So, all right, let's talk a little bit about the orbs, because we haven't mentioned it as much. The orbs are very fucking random. They go anywhere. Party Finder for me has always been a new discussion with the tank about how they want to do it. Right. Because the tanks in particular, from my perspective, the tanks, I have to say, all right, these are the ground rules, dude. This is how we're going to do it. And then I have to kind of discuss it with him and say, all right, either you take north all the time or I take south all the time. And if it's not that, then we go clockwise or counterclockwise. Then they're like, no, I only get north and west and you get east and south. And then we'll figure out, we'll wing it.
Boss relative, wall relative.
There are a lot of different ways to do it. And I think the easiest way to break it down is to separate it between the Umbral Orbs that spawn when you don't have to go to the wall and the ones that spawn when you do. Because the ones that spawn when you don't is a little bit quicker to just handle.
Yeah.
So they're going to spawn in either a box, a diamond, or a diagonal line. But that's mostly irrelevant. Mm-hmm. You're going to stand around the group. And the multiple ways, I would say, the most convoluted one is probably to just say that you'll just adjust and you'll just figure it out. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you can't assume that both people are going to do what you need to do. And when you have the healer groups doing that, then the DPS are confused. You could do like a north and like a clockwise rotation and treat it like Heaven's Fall trio in UCOB, or you could do like, I'll take these 2 cardinals, you take those 2 cardinals, and treat it like the Garuda sisters in Uwu for people who have done the ultimates. I know that's a very small pool of players compared to the large populace of Savage. Mm-hmm. Or you could be like, I'll do it. I'll go to the left looking at the boss, and I'll go to the right looking at the boss. But depending on the side of the boss you're on, that's going to be different versus the other party.
Yeah.
So I think the easiest way that people generally figure it out is when you say like, I'll take north and east and you take west and south, or I'll take north clockwise, you take west counterclockwise. Typically the same thing that you're saying. It's just however the person processes it. Or you keep the main tank in the front, you put the off tank in the back, whatever.
Yeah. Or you take the northmost if they're even. You take left, or you take east or west if they're even. You know.
And then for the light parties, I would put the healers generally like I think Todd, a lot of your experience you'll see, right? And Frosty, you're the off tank, you're in the back, right? So the healers are on the left and the right already. So you typically keep them there, and then the stacks meet them, and then you're like, well, if it's north and south, who's moving? And that's where a lot of the confusion will come in, because then the party's like, I don't fucking know what's going on. I did it on Machinist and Red Mage, and both times I just had to click my healer and watch where they went, and then follow them.
Yeah. That's fair. You know what? The other thing, we're talking about the wall and the orbs. My favorite thing is that hurdle of figuring out if we're talking about facing the boss or facing the wall, right?
So facing the boss, I think, is very detrimental for a couple of reasons. First off, you give yourself less time. So if I were to say, I'll take left looking at the boss, I'm going to figure out the safe side, run to the wall, turn around, look left, and then go that way. Or reverse it in my head, and because I'm going left at the boss, I'm going right at the wall, when you could just say at the beginning, looking right at the wall.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or what I think is even better is to just split it up into two ways. When you see the jumpy dogs come out, you're going to see 4 dogs appear, 4 clones of the Shadow Keeper, and there's going to be a tether. The safe spot will only ever be perpendicular or 90 degrees from that tether. So they're always going to jump clockwise. If it keeps going clockwise on the 5th jump, it's going to be whatever that subsequent direction is clockwise. Otherwise, it's going to be counterclockwise. So if you say it starts west, right? The last jump keeps going, it's going to go north. Otherwise, it's going to turn around and go south, and those are your 2 safe spots. Because you know they'll only ever be north and south, you already have a healer on west, you already have a healer on east, you're already on the sides you need to be on. Instead of looking right, looking at the wall and making one healer do this and the other healer do that, just make this movement, forward and back. Doesn't matter which wall it goes to, you're already on the side you need to be on. That's my preferred method. You could pre-position like 10, 15 seconds in advance. You already know what to do and there's no confusion, as opposed to waiting and then giving yourselves 4 or 5 seconds.
So like a relative east and west is what you're talking about, sort of.
Right. Yeah. So like one party prioritizes north and east, the other party prioritizes west and south, and whether it's north and south or east and west is dictated by which way the dog's jumping. And you only ever have one spot to go. And then out of the configuration, it could either be tank, tank, party, 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 tank, tank, party. It could be any amalgamation of those. But I like it like that because you give your party more than enough time. And just because your bard positionals and movement don't matter because you don't care because it's uptime for you doesn't mean it doesn't affect other people.
Or you could
That's not a shot at anyone.
No. Or you could just over mitigate it, right, and not get the debuff and just
Yeah. I'll take responsibility
for
for people getting mad over that.
Yeah.
Momo had really good clips on it, and I think you guys still do that, right? Where you just handle it. Mitigating the barbs of agony, for the dogs, for the jumpy dogs. Yeah. And if your team's good and you plan it properly, your healers, a big complaint is that you guys waste like 4 or 5 Ruin 2s and like a couple of GCDs from the other healer, but I don't even think it's that bad, right?
No, that's just bad play if they're doing that. You only lose one Ruin 2. Yeah.
And everyone else keeps uptime.
Everyone keeps uptime.
Yeah.
As opposed to risking uptime in the other strats, and you might get the uptime, but you might also just nuke the party or die yourself.
In the strat we do, we only lose 380 potency doing it, so it's like not that big a deal.
I do. Go ahead.
It's no, never mind.
No, I was just going to say that this mechanic's shit, and I think that they poorly planned it out. So it seems.
I like
so
that we
goofy.
could cheese it though.
Yeah.
Solving that was cool, but doing it makes it a little bit more boring, I guess, as Momo was saying, where it becomes like a dummy fight. But solving the puzzle and figuring out the mitigation was cool, and finding out that most comps can do it is also really cool.
Party Finder can do it. I will tell you, I was forced to try it a few times with Party Finder, and they never could get it. They were like,
if your Party Finder doesn't have a scholar, it's going to be hard.
Yeah,
you've got Veil,
Scholar Astra if you're doing it in PF.
Yeah.
You can do it with White Mage, but it's just way too strict, especially for PF.
Yeah, maybe if you have a White Mage, but you have like a Bard.
Or you can tank LB, I guess,
and a Warrior.
White Mage, but
Tank LB will work. Tank LB in part. So in a static, you wouldn't use Tank LB. In Party Finder, you probably would because there's a good chance your melee's not even got it on the bar.
Mm-hmm. All right, Todd. I want your perspective here on the Void Gates.
Void Gates?
Yeah. Do you think Void Gates are like a good mechanic in this fight? Do you feel like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm glad they put it in there. This is why not?
Am I glad?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, if like we talked about before, if people mess up, damage down, and you might not clear later because of that. The other thing, I think it teaches tanks to like position the boss, or at least think about it. Hopefully, because if they have it too far north, the melees on the south Void Gate, like they're not going to hit anything. Like I've seen that happen many times, or they move too slow and they come back in, so it's actually northeast. So now you have south and west melee; they can't hit anything. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a pretty good mechanic. I don't mind it.
One thing I didn't talk about at all is that they did introduce something kind of interesting: the little shadows of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your personal little.
From the Shadow Cleave mechanic.
Yeah. So they threw. They said, "Hey, we're gonna put this in here. You get too close to him, he hits you," and that's kind of the mechanic.
I kind of like
it hits everybody, anyone near you.
Oh yeah.
Anyone near it? I don't even know.
Yeah, he'll AoE. Only you can activate it, but it could wipe the group.
Oh yeah. I will say that it's hard to find a party finder that's comfortable doing uptime with those. They always want you to run just straight to the wall, and they just
for your tanks, yeah.
Yeah. So I've gotten used to
that's safe. Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like it was pretty interesting that they included them in the solution for Void Gate 2. Because I mean that was something wasn't in my head that they would do, is that they would make a clone of you sit somewhere and you have to figure out how to use it. Although I think in the first time that you get the clones, at least they spawn right on top of you, right?
Yeah, and then they do a teleport later.
Yeah.
So it shows that they can be moved, and they appear behind you for that. To nothing personnel kid the hell out of you.
Okay.
Right. I really dislike that mechanic, actually, just because of
Void
that.
Gate 2 or just in general?
Void Gate 2, because I feel like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least I don't remember, but it's like they give you the pitch bog puddles the first time, right?
Yep.
But you don't go in them. So you don't know your clone actually spawns in them. And then they do it the second time, and they actually make the mechanic based around stepping in the puddle, which it's kind of like the
actively avoid. It's like trying to
you never set it up
Enigma
beforehand.
Codex. Yeah, exactly like that.
Which is
they give you the pieces of the puzzle, but you have to do it wrong to figure out that that's the part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is goofy. That's a gotcha.
Well, our first time seeing it, we were like, okay, what's going on here? And we wiped because we didn't have everybody up. Our second time, I was like, okay, well, there's 16. We know that the Void Gates were satisfied with 8 players. This time there's 16 dots. And there were these fucking puddles. And I think it was Sand who was like, we just got to step in them. It's gonna give us a shadow, I think, is what's gonna happen. Or stand in them to mitigate the damage so we don't get doom. And then we stood it and we're like, there's a fucking clone. And I think actually in Prague, it's been patched out now, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Momo, but I'm pretty sure like day 1, even when they were getting ready to teleport, if you got close to them, they'll cleave you. So you couldn't actually be near them at all until they teleported. Now, once that cast begins, you can step right up to them and it's fine. But like when we were progging that, we were like, okay, 16 spots to satisfy. How are we going to solve this puzzle? And there's the Akito Kachi JP. It's the same strat we came up with in our group. Or there's the where the shadows satisfy the outside towers and the players satisfy the inside towers. Or there's the strat where you have like melee uptime and casters and healers just hate their lives and have to keep running the entire time. The former strat can still have uptime for melees. The latter strat cannot have uptime for healers or your caster. And when we solved it, I looked at it and I was like, we got shackled apart. There's probably going to be a shackled together. And for some reason, I was just like, we just got to have the shadows on the outside because we're going to have to satisfy this on the inside. And then it happened. And then shackled together happened. So it was like, okay, cool, great. It's probably role based, and then it was, because typically when things happen, it's either going to be that you're buddied with somebody of the same role or an opposite role. And in this case, it made sense to be opposite roles because shackled apart was opposite roles. So it just kind of solved itself for us, and we ended up coming up with a similar strat to what a lot of other groups had. And it was a nice solve, but it was also kind of shit because like what Momo said, it's not very intuitive telling you how to solve the puzzle. But I mean, if you've watched other groups, then they're going to solve it for you.
It's true. I mean, that's my life, is I watch other groups. So that's how I prog. You guys come from a completely different perspective, where you kind of you're figuring out. That's kind of the thing you're doing. You're figuring out for yourself before you go in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I mean, Ren said the same way. Like, basically, like after the first time we wiped two, it was like, wait, there's 8 puddles.
Mm-hmm.
What did they do? Right. That was like the first question we asked ourselves, and it ended up being the correct answer. But
yeah, and then you don't care about it, right? Because you see that you already had damage downs on a healer LB, and you're like, this boss is at 5%. Whatever we can do to get past this, we're not seeing it next week.
Mm-hmm. It is weird. Them introducing mechanics where you only see it if you mess up. What was the other one that they did that with? Oh, it was
Enigma Codex.
Oh,
I mean, it was both.
Yeah,
it was both. It was both.
It was one of those things where Raiders were just struggling with Uwu for sure, and I remember that where they were just like, I don't know what the fuck is the answer here, and then they found out they were supposed to get all these different things, and make these little mistakes. Yeah, and so I don't know why I guess it just adds some spice to it. I guess, do you guys like that stuff, or do you not like it?
In one of the interviews, they said for Ultimate, it was a spectator sport. It was just get the gotcha thing for the viewers to see, oh, okay, that's how it's solved. They might have incorporated that into Savage too, or they might just be trying different things. And there's only so many ways they can give us a stack, a spread, a tank buster, a raid wide. Like they have the same formula, and I like that they're trying new things and environmental stuff. I just don't know how creative they can get with it without doing things like this, where it's like do it wrong to do it right.
Okay.
But yeah, personally, I don't really think it's good fight design to force you to wipe just to see like why you made a mistake, I guess. Like it doesn't give you all the pieces of the puzzle. It just kind of
artificial longevity.
Yeah.
All right, Todd. Anything else you want to add on to E10S? I mean, we hit it pretty good, but
no, I don't think so. I think I covered it.
Yeah.
How about pulling the boss into Doton and then pulling it away so that the south is not unsafe for the get out mechanic?
Yeah. I already adjust. I go to the flanks after that because I know it's going to happen, but not everyone catches on. But again, boss positioning, recenter it, please.
Which is good. I mean, that's the thing. Like all the bosses, you have to really just get in the center. I think every single one, the game is get the boss in the center, or it recenters it for you. There's no like really good.
Not that one,
movement.
no.
Yeah.
Well, in E10, it's not going to recenter itself, but she will lock in. So if you're like, I don't want to turn the boss around for the melee right now, fucking do it, because she's about to lock in for like a full minute in a spot where your melees can't hit the boss.
Corners are the safest there for anyone. Yeah.
Well, you kind of have to just know that too, right? You just that takes a good experience with the fight. So if you're progging it, you might not. Yeah, it could be goofy. All right, so the fight that was the hardest third turn to ever exist, right? It was the big thing that Square Enix was like, this is the third fight. You're going to be like, wow, holy fuck, I didn't, know it was going to be like this. For me...
I thought you were being serious for a second.
No, for me, it didn't turn out that way. I don't think that it turned out that way. I mean, the positive is it wasn't just a static boss on the side of the arena, right?
But it was a lot more straightforward in that. I think it was easier to prog because it didn't just fuck the rest of your party if you messed up.
Yeah.
You'd still kill somebody if you messed up, but stack, spread, raid wide AoE, buster, and like rinse, repeat. I don't know about Todd and Momo or even having the mechanic come up at like the 1 minute mark right after the powder mark. You too, Frosty. Like there's a tank swap, right? And then he does like, okay, I'm gonna do this element now, and I know it's just an introduction for the rest of the fight, but it's always the same spot every single time, no matter what.
Yeah,
I would have liked a little bit more randomness to it.
I guess my biggest complaint, and the other fights they did this pretty good. This one was like, here's the same thing. It's just going to keep happening. And they just kept doing the same thing over and over and over again for that fight. There was no real big variation. You had the little intermissions, and that was it. But
I think normal mode should be that. Like Savage should be a lot more random, and you have to figure it out as you go. Normal mode's pretty nice to just have it be the same because you're going to be playing with new players that don't even raid, right? They're just going to do it because they're like, this is the new content. I'm going to do this.
Sure, but they decided that this was the only one they're going to do it on. right? The third turn.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, let's do some, because this would be good for the first fight, you know? Back to the same old situation. Like, oh, this would have made a good first fight. Because I will be honest, learning the fight, I was overwhelmed. I saw it and I was like, how the fuck am I going to remember all these different things and everything else? But after you see it, it's, I don't know, there's just not really much to it.
I'm not gonna lie, even progging it, you didn't have to be strict, right? You're like, okay, we're gonna get knocked to this side or that side, but then there's like 15 seconds to get to the right side if we messed up. We didn't even pay attention to this fact that like the red and blue portals on the second set for like shifting skies, that they were static. We just adjusted every time. Who cared?
Yeah.
And we just, all right, here's a tether this way, here's a tether this way. Let's just do what it's showing us. You didn't have to be very strict, and that was cool. I guess, but farming it's a little boring because you're just going to do the same thing every time. You do have to fix your burst timings around though, because you're like, all right, we have this timing on this window. Let's take Paladin for example, right? You're like, all right, well, if I don't do an early confetti or I'm not getting one before the boss goes away, I'm going to miss that one entirely. Or if you're on Dark Knight, you're like, all right, well, if I pop my Living Shadow later, I'm just losing time on it because it's just not going to be there. But I can't save it because I'm going to lose the use entirely, so I got to find out a way to get this out earlier. It's just little things like that make you think, and then you're like, all right, well, I'm going to get 3 potions. There's a 4-minute one, but I could just use it at 4.5 minutes with everybody else. We could delay for 30 seconds, line up our burst. It'll come up for the end of the fight before people have to do heavy healing, and just little things like that where you're like, where is it best for the party?
Yeah. I mean, that's fun, but you do that with, like, I guess not every fight you do that, but I mean, if
it's a dummy fight, it's not bad. You just save it for 6 minutes to use it there. But in a fight like this with downtime, you kind of got to make choices, and that's the fun part about it. But other than that, it's I don't know. I think it's kind of boring.
Okay, Todd, what's your thoughts on 11?
I think I have the most success, I guess, in Party Finder with this one. I think it's like the fastest.
Yeah,
like we'll get through most of the time. We struggle the most with like 9 and 10, and then just making a group for 12. But what they're saying, it's pretty straightforward. Like once you learn it, you're like, okay, well, it's just the small things that.
I beat this fight in 6 hours in Party Finder, which is fairly good considering 9 was like 20, 10 was like 20. And I mean, this is including getting parties disbanding, getting parties mess up a couple mechanics, little things just constantly. Like, it's RNG when you go into it. But this fight was fairly straightforward. I could progress and say, oh, I saw this. Well, I guess I'll progress on this next time. And it was fairly easy. I mean, I do, every once in a while, I do like just having not a boss to attack. I know not everybody likes that, but every once in a while, I'm kind of like, I could use a little bit of a break.
That's dangerous for me.
My gun time is
because it allows me to remeld and change foods for more or less GCDs between phases.
It allows me to place troops in stream raiders.
I think the downtime in 11 is really good because it's not like, so I think downtime's actually good in fights because one, it makes optimizing them interesting because it fucks with your rotation. 2, I think downtime's good as long as it's interesting, right? The thing with E3, my issue with E3 downtime was that it was really boring, right? You didn't really.
You just pulled your lilies, used all your lilies there, and then you did a 1-minute reopener for everybody else. Yeah,
for E7, at least the first one, you have to pay attention to what color it is, and then get knocked back to the spot, and then do your tethers and stacks, and then dodge the cleaving, thin creds or whatever, and then Thunder Sky, you have a lot more going on as well, and there's 3 this time, on top of a holy and fire tether. So it keeps things interesting, whereas E3, E7 kind of not. It's kind of just sitting there.
No. I will say, again, a lot of this fight was scary to see, like not knowing the fight yet, but once you actually go in and do it, it's like the brain dead for Sundered Sky. The fight's done. You don't think about it at all, right? You have a couple emotions, like, oh, I go to this way, Mark, then okay, it's time to move to the wall. All right, let me make sure.
Use your sure cast at arm's length.
That fight is quite literally Protean spot the fight.
Oh, I don't use.
As long as you remember your Protean spot, you're good.
Yeah,
that's right.
But they use that too often in fights. I feel like Protean's in every single fight now.
Oh yeah,
at some point.
Especially this tier.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's like a thing that I really hate, but I mean, it is true. They do use it a lot.
It's basically what stacks are now, right? It's like a fundamental raid mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the problem with that is, like Todd mentioned earlier, most of the time in a static, it's not going to be an issue because you just have the same spots. But the problem is when you have 4 people join a party and they all had that one spot and they don't want to or know how to adjust, even though the arena is symmetrical, and they just can't do it. Right. And like Todd said earlier, somebody left one of your parties, right? Because they couldn't get their spot.
Yeah, that was 9. But with 11, I've seen people not be able to adjust to the boss. Like if it's pointed south, they look at their marker only. They can't go back to their the relative spot.
Mm-hmm.
Or you'll have, we have to alternate DPS and then another roll, DPS and another roll. But also I'm a black mage, so I have to have my ley line. So I need to have southeast, so melee has to go up front.
Mm-hmm. So
it's really annoying.
I will say, going back to 9, tanking that, I always do everything I can to face them north and just don't give a fuck if they say, oh, is it boss relative or not? Well, it's always north, we're just going to do that. And no matter what, it flips the boss around, it does some other shit. But man, you guys are great players, but you are not party finder progress. The people,
a lot of people are learning boss relative. They're getting better at it. It's just taking time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I think that in large is part to, good raiders getting into party finder. You flood the party with people who are relative, and then only one person has to learn what that means. It's going to be easier for them to piece that together.
It's true. But yeah, no, I think, and I mean, some people have told me they had different experiences. I think we saw in chat a second ago that some people have taken 2 weeks to clear E11S, and it was a much harder fight for them. But
right,
because a heal check or whatever, or things that aren't in their control, right? I think definitely the DPS check at the end and the cycles, because like you said with Sundered, it's brain dead, but some people still don't do it like that. So then they'll just nuke the party. Half the party's gone, and now it's a struggle to clear. It can be really hard.
I mean, you're just trying to find people who know how to go to a spot and understand what the brain dead mech is, and then it's done. And it's usually pretty easy to explain. Like you said, there's toolboxes and stuff out there that you can just easily just show them real quick in chat, and they can copy paste and throw it into a browser, and if they're not on a PlayStation, I guess, and actually figure out what they need to do pretty quick. Man, I don't know. I guess I did get stressed out after the fog portion, when you're in the last part of it, a couple times when we're doing it, because I'm like, man, I better remember my 1, 2, 3 combo on what the element is. But it's
did you ever end up in the situation where you're like, all right, we have the light cleave, so the other tank's going to come up with me, and now I have to move to the side, and I moved a second late, and now I have a damage down, or things like that. A lot of people will do that or get hit by. I think that's where it becomes hard. That's where people start failing the check or dying. Because you can't mess that up as a physical range. You just don't have the HP for it if you're progging and you don't have gear.
Right.
And Frost, you've probably done this in 11. If you're the off tank, you're south, you probably heal off the boss a little bit for the lightning, the spreads, so you don't end up clipping a melee that doesn't quite give you enough room.
Yeah, you have to. You can't. I died one. I think that I actually did that on E9S with the Proteans. Is that I was just too much in the boss, and I died because I was just too much into the boss. And so from then, I was just like, "Fuck it, I'm just max melee or whatever else." Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly where your finger's at. That was a little right? I was like, "Whoa, what are you showing me, buddy?" Well, no.
I forgot to change the arena when we got to this fight.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. I do want to talk about the. So let's talk about the tank buster for this fight, because it is a little interesting, I suppose, with the fact that you're like, okay, tank buster happens now. The off tank has to worry about, or whoever is now the off tank now has to worry about positioning and where they're standing and everything else. It's a nice little flavor. I'm glad that they're trying different things, and it does add to different things you have to do. But as a paladin, going in, was it Heavens, whatever, the books,
Turn of the Heavens.
Turn of the Heavens.
Yeah.
You hallowed ground, and you just go into where the bad spot is, and
you just sit in there.
You don't have.
But as a warrior or a dark knight, you really got to learn how to time that to get to the group if you're doing it that way.
Yeah, that is true. Gunbreakers and paladins, they just kind of whatever.
I think the last time we saw that mechanic was, well, we've probably seen it since then. Well, we saw it on what was his name? The serpent at the end of Stormblood. Who came after Suzaku?
Shiryu?
No. I don't remember his name, but he did it. He did the tank swap. Siryu, the snake.
Shiryu,
Yeah, he had the force tank swap, and then before that, you had Nail in the original T9, right? Would do the Raven's Beak, and then you'd have the explosion buster later, where you had to just be away from the party. So it's nice that they're bringing that back, and it kind of makes you work mitigation around, right? And speaking on that, I would definitely say mitigate the first hit and then invuln the second hit, especially if you're a Dark Knight Warrior or Gunbreaker, because there's no reason that you should shoot yourself to 1 HP and then have to be healed up only to go back down again.
So I was messing around with it, and I'm pretty sure, unless if I just have really good healers, Rampart covers both the Tank Buster hit and the explosion. But you have to do it exactly.
But you can't Sentinel both.
You can't Sentinel both, but you can Rampart both of them. And for me, it's Sheltron both of them too. So like I can basically get 40% mitigation or whatever on both of those hits, and it's not too big of a deal. But it's exact timing. Like you have to hit it with that 1 second left on there, I think, for it to work.
And it is a magical buster that gives you a physical vuln, so you have to tank swap or the auto detonates it.
Yeah. All right. So anything else about E11S you guys want to hit up on? I mean, for me, it's just such a straightforward fight. I didn't feel. I am
pretty
sad.
straightforward.
I am sad that they didn't actually. I'm glad they added voice to it, but I'm sad that they didn't make it more mechanically challenging, and they didn't make that. They didn't keep their word on it being the big bad third boss fight like they said they would. But
maybe it was because the DPS check was tight and the ending healing was like the cycles from Voidwalker that gave it the artificial difficulty. But once you get gear, it's not a problem. I think the music was great, but the music in this tier overall was pretty good. The aesthetic was nice too.
Is there a tier? I mean, where you're like, oh man, the music sucked.
7.
I didn't care for Midgard, but I didn't care for Midgard as a fight.
Okay.
Oh, any fight that has Force Your Way, Todd
Force Your Way.
Here again.
No, I
never. You can see the fury in his eyes.
It's reused too much. Yeah.
Yeah, Fatebreaker was pretty cool. Obviously, I'm partial because I'm a Gunbreaker, so I thought it was cool that they turned a Gunbreaker into a boss. And the voice acting is cool because you can kind of improv and add Mad Lib it a little bit. But it gets a little boring, and sometimes like that. And then Eden's Promise, especially with the voice acting, is really hard. Sometimes in Prague, it was hard to hear my team over the voice acting that was happening. So I turned the voice down to 2.
Yeah, I mean, I keep it pretty low, anyways. But yeah, I feel like I wonder if they make the voice acting. Can you say it a little bit like this so we could maybe make it sound like whore? Or could you say a little bit like this?
Hibachi.
Yeah. Just like taco, just a little bit, off.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
You think they're over there in the voice acting booth and they're just like, yeah, just change it. Just change it. There's a little
they have a perfect enunciation the first time. They're like, we're going to need a do-over.
Yeah.
Chew on this marshmallow while you say it.
Momo, do you have anything else on E11 that you want to talk about? You feel like we're good?
No, I mean, like you said, E11's a pretty straightforward fight. I do think when they said they were talking about the wall, I'm pretty sure they're referring to the more average player because there is a lot of RNG in that fight. Pretty sure actually everything in that fight is actually RNG outside the first set of Turn of the Heavens.
I don't think they understand what the average player has issues with.
This
you would be
really
surprised.
good,
That Turn of the Heavens right after Sundered, right? People mess that up a lot when you have stack spread and they just don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of RNG. And then actually, it's the same with E10 too. I think this tier, what it's really good at doing, even in E9, it kind of makes you think differently than a traditional fight, I feel. Like radial
Especially
awareness. E10. Yeah, like the
or
way
environmental
you think of
awareness.
Well, just the way you think of mechanics, right? Like that slash, like I feel like every top end group actually had players who struggled with that mechanic a bit, right? Because you never really had to think of it that way before.
The left right cleave, you mean, for the shadow cleave?
Yeah, like the shadow.
Yeah. I think all 8 of us understood it a different way by the time we solved the mechanic.
Like everybody's brain works differently for that mechanic, so it's like some people, like for me, for example, the way I saw it is I always face my clone true north, right? And I use that. some people do it based off like.
I did the same way, or they'll do like a clockwise, counterclockwise, the way that the tail's coming out. And...
I mean, I look at the boss. I try to get an angle where I'm seeing the back of the boss, and then I see which way, and that way I know to left or right. Then I imagine my hand, like I pick up my hand. I'm like, this is where I'm cleaving, right?
You got the L's.
yeah. I'm like, all right, and I put a lot of intensity, like in this hand. I'm like, it's the left cleave, and then I look and I line myself up. I'm like, this is where my tail is. All right, I'm cleaving this way. And then
you have a prop sword in that hand too. And
just.
Of course.
You don't have them just hanging around? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I feel like the issue with average players in this game is coordination and working with other players. I don't feel like it's mechanics. I feel like it's just
100%.
The coordination, and I feel like 9 and 10 has that more than 11. So if they wanted to add difficulty, they would add difficulty by adding things that people have to coordinate more with.
Well, I don't necessarily think so, because like E11, the reason I think that is because like it's not scripted. I mean, it's scripted, but it's not, right? Because each pattern in that fight is so vastly different in a sense. Like, I mean, they're all similar, but they're all like very different at the same time, right? Like light is much different than fire, right?
Right, but much easier to execute than tiles.
Yeah, and then tiles is, I mean,
it is still a buddy type mechanic, and sometimes people will try to pair up. If it's the stack set, they'll try to buddy up on the same tile. Like the range will come in and the melee will move over, and they'll just die. But this is I guess talking strictly from like pugs playing with each other.
Yeah,
I think 11's a little bit more straightforward. It's still random, like you said, completely, but I do think it's a little bit easier for them to comprehend. Because in that essence, what they're playing with each other, right? They're not playing with the arena.
Yeah.
Keep going, Red. Let's keep going.
Go on.
They're not playing with the arena. They're playing with the players.
Yeah. So 11. Yeah. When we're talking about 11, I look at those mechanics and I'm like a tank. So I say, all right, well, when this mechanic happens, I do this, and if I mess up, then it's on me. I'm not going to kill anyone else. It's everyone else having to do their own thing and doing that mechanic. I mean, when you have to stack together, yeah, you can kill each other. Good image timing. But I mean, like, I feel like in 11, you have your own little world you can stay in. But in like 9, you have to watch what they're doing with the tiles. In like 10, you're supposed to kind of, I guess, watch them and see if they mess up on the cleaves and stuff. You can kind of work with that, and it requires people to work together. I don't feel like 11 really has that as much. I just don't.
Yeah.
So,
like you wouldn't care if a healer in a range missed their stack, as long as the person with you stacks with you, right?
We would have done it correctly. Yeah.
But somebody else cleaves improperly, and suddenly you have a damage down. Everybody does.
No. Anyways. Then we get to 12, right? 12.
Right.
And as of this airing, like right now, as we're live here, I haven't cleared 12 myself. So I'm just letting you all know.
But you cleared the first part.
I've cleared the first part last night after 7 hours of waiting in Party Finder, getting in, losing people, going out, coming back, having fucking the worst experiences. And this is just one day. And I've been doing this for weeks, 2 weeks of doing Party Finder. And I just got into P2 last night. And when we got into it, we were able to struggle our way to Triple Apocalypse. So we got there somehow. All the mechanics seem pretty straightforward in P2. The only thing that I have to like brush up on, I was telling you guys, is the Double Apocalypse and Triple Apocalypse. All the other ones are just kind of mapped out and straightforward. The relativities, they don't have a lot of issues to them. And I feel like the group stacks are very generous. Very generous.
Absolutely.
So it's not too big of a deal as long as everybody kind of knows what they're doing in there and kind of puts it together. Again, they're kind of, you're doing your own thing in there. You have a role, and you say, hey, I go in there. If I have this debuff, I stand this way here, here, and here. You have your own directions you follow, and you're fine. P1, so going into this fight, Party Finder, and I was saying this before the show, they don't know what mitigation is. They just don't They don't know.
That's true.
They don't.
They really
they don't
don't.
know they have these defensive abilities, man. They don't. And
Like,
this
were
is
we
the
going to use
only
Samba
fight.
or
Feint,
maybe Adel?
maybe.
Yeah. Adel, oh, you need it. They're like, hey, could you use Adel here? It's like, oh, well, I did this other one. Do you need it here too? Fucking just, why don't you just use it? Well,
You want me to feint the Buster?
Why? You have it available, and you're like, oh man, a lot of AoE's happening here. Do I
Well,
have
it's not
anything?
a learning party. It's a clearing party.
It doesn't matter. It could be fucking. It could be like fresh prog, or it could be clear party. They do the exact same thing. You get just as far every single time, man.
This is true.
That's true. That's true. We
mean-
spent in a party last night with Todd, what, 4 hours?
Yeah.
5 hours?
That was
with 8
wild.
players who have done the fight. And we didn't get past P1 till the end.
No,
It just happens.
It's a mess. Like sometimes, like, what would you rather join? Like, you see two PFs listed. It's like 7 out of 8 clear for one, or maybe 5 out of 8 a duty complete party. Like, which one? I mean, you might have better luck with that clear for one.
So my perspective here, I think this is a good fight. I feel like this overall, I'm happy with the fight. I think it's great, but something needs to be fixed with Party Finder and like the mentality
We
of
need
players.
healers, healers and patience.
The average casual player, something needs to be done to make them not as bad. Because I spent so much time
Trust.
studying
Use
and
trust.
researching. Trust, man. Yeah. Have them go in there with trust.
Going with 4 people and then trust. All right.
Yeah. But I gotta say, I do like things that I like about this fight, right? I do like the elemental combos. I think this nice little thing that they throw in that you have to just learn and figure out. You learn it from normal, though. All the elemental combos you know in normal. So you go into this one, you have an understanding of what they are. You can kind of make sense out of it.
Do you? Did you pay attention in normal? Or
I
did
did.
you just think the arena was really cool and you just made it 8 minutes in and then you showed up into E12 with your relic weapon from Bolsha and
Yeah,
you think you're going to get by?
This sounds like a personal experience here.
I've had a number of people DM me. They're like, so what melds do I put in the Gunbreaker relic for E12? And I'm like, you put whatever gets you through Emerald Weapon and you get that.
Yeah.
Then you go into E12.
Unless if you're doing world first, get the emerald weapon. Why wouldn't you?
You're not using the relic in World.
Yeah.
Yeah. You, at least a crafted weapon. They're not that expensive, right?
Yeah, you get the crafted weapon. They're pretty straightforward. But I mean, at this point, everyone should just have emerald weapons. They're easy to get. There's whatever. You get through that fight and you're done. I want to ask you guys. I have so many things to say on this fight because I've had 40 hours of it recently in the last couple of weeks. Could you guys tell me your thoughts on E12S? Just, do you like it? Do you think it's a good fight? Do you think it's a bad fight overall?
I mean, I like it, and I think Phase 2 is actually kind of fun. I mean, I think it's easier. It's just I just like getting there and just seeing all the little teleports. But yeah, Phase 1 can be rough, certainly in Party Finder. But overall, I really like the.
Okay, Momo.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. It's definitely a lot of fun. It has the M&F syndrome where the last 2 minutes of the fight are just kind of existing. Like there's really nothing there. They're just there to like pad the fight length so you don't skip lions or something when you have like best in slot. But that's fine because I think you kind of need that there regardless, so you don't end up actually skipping all the mechanics at best in slot.
Yeah.
But in terms of Prague, I think it was a good fight. Especially, I mean, it's kind of hard to say because like some people don't like it because they're DPS, but as a healer, I think it's a lot of fun. Mechanics, a lot of fun to figure out, a lot of fun to execute. I still enjoy doing door boss even now. It's something I like actually like. Oh hey, I can't wait to do door boss this week because it's actually fun to execute or fun to do. And also the music in that fight syncs up really well with the mechanics, which I love fights like that where you can actually use the mechanics to sync with the music and execute them that way.
And the fights feel better like that.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer, but are you guys happy there's a door boss back? That they brought it back?
Absolutely.
I think
there's a huge divide though between people that love it and hate it.
I love
Even in my team, like it doesn't give loot. It's shit. It's just there to get past. I'm like, well, would you want a 17-minute fight where you'd have to do it every time if you wipe? Or
Yeah. Yeah,
But I
Just think
like
of
them.
Shiva as a door boss. You'll just have to get through that light rampant one
Well,
time.
it's just a little bit of a different fight, and they can do different things because it's a different boss, right? So I like it, and I like the fact that you can't skip lions
Yeah.
or anything
those 2
before
minutes
that.
are kind of required. I feel like every fight is padded. Like, that's the thing with Ramu, right? If you think about it in a sense, like the reason why fights have those like really long enrages, and I feel like people don't really think about it this way, but they say that pad the fight length so you don't actually skip mechanics, right? Because if they didn't add that, like imagine if they didn't add that to Ramu, right? Like let's say the fight ends right after that chain lightning, you'd probably kill like what I don't know.
Well, like, look, skipping Black Smokers. What you skipped Neverwhere from Neo Extet. There's like so many mechanics that you skipped and they were really cool, but then you just never. Or even what Alexander Prime, people were skipping.
That's what I was
Void of
gonna bring up.
Repentance.
Yeah, so
like week
Yeah, that's the
1.
thing. Like that's why they added. That's why they add those long periods of enrages, is so that
Right.
it doesn't end up skipping later on. And it's
I'm
not a
fine with that.
bad thing to do. Yeah, like I think it's good. I think that if they're going to do that, though, they need to. I mean, I guess it's a bit of controversial, but I feel like if they're going to do that, then they need to make the fights a bit longer. Like I think E9 was really
This tier was very short.
E5 was really good, right? Because it's basically a 9-minute fight, right? Like that's pretty standard. And then it goes up to like 10:30 or something for the enrage. I think that's great. That's probably like one of the best designs they can do because it feels like an actual fight, but you also just have a bunch of like time to waste away.
I think. Yeah, every fight last year had at least 3 potions, even after a couple weeks,
Yeah.
which was
So
really cool.
E6 was a weird one because that was
E6
like
became short. If you
Yeah.
saw the mechanics after Conflag, the fight became much longer in Party Finder because people died. If you didn't see it,
Yes.
great. But as soon as you had to do that
Facts.
rotate right towards the end, where the DPS and tanks
That
had to move
last
away
set.
from each other after, it was over. But this tier is very short, which makes it nice to prog with people, but also kind of does like that. Like the last 2 minutes sucks. But what are you going to do otherwise, right? They're going to give us hard mechanics that we wouldn't see. Although Terminal Relativity in Oracle of Darkness is a nice solution, right? It's just a fucking heal fest
yeah.
and mitigation fest. And if you miss something, you're dead. And then as you get geared, you can kind of stop healing as much in between because you notice you stay full for some hits. But skipping that's not really a big deal, right? Because you're just skipping damage.
Yeah, that's an enrage. It's a soft enrage. It's not a big deal.
It's kind of what E9 was, or keeps saying E9, E5 was too. Just a bunch of judgment bolts that hit really hard back to back to back.
Yeah,
It involved you like trying to pay
syndrome.
attention
Yeah.
because you had to pick up an orb for some, and then some you didn't.
So I guess the one thing they made this like the final boss. That it was a decisive final boss, as in it brought in Shiva's stuff, it brought in Titan, it brought in like stuff from other fights. I mean, it just like kind of put it together. It's like, here you go. Here's the raid tier in this last fight. It felt a little bit like that. Do you feel like that's a good way to go? I feel like that was a pretty cool way to end it off for the raid tiers, this expansion, but I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this fight's a great swan song, right? Because there are going to be people who are going to do this who might not have raided the first 2 tiers and gotten to do Savage of them, and now you get to kind of get the best of all worlds. I think it's really, really cool.
And if you did the previous tiers, you come into this one and you're like, hey, I have experience. I feel like I'm a knowledgeable raider because I know about yellow triangle and, you know, so on. And
you see that Junction Titan executed properly, and you're like, yes, that looks really cool. You see Shiva executed, and you're like,
Oh man,
lights ramping all over again. They just drove an icicle.
what
through
if they
my
had
heart.
the raised platforms for that?
Dude, Shiva Junction is scary still every time.
Shiva in general. Shiva in general is scary.
gift that keeps on giving.
Every single mechanic that involves Shiva, like if we start out the fight and you're like, man, I hope I get Titan. No, it's a 90% chance you're getting Shiva, right? You got to get that in there. I mean, I guess it's okay because you have to deal with Shiva later in the fight no matter what, where you have to do the
Do
spread
you though?
mechanic.
Smile. Skip it, forehead.
I'm Party Finder. Fuck you. I'm happy to get that because if people don't got it right at the beginning of the fight, they might not get it right at the end of the fight. And so we can go ahead and test that real quick. And man, I've been killed by so many range players running right into the boss. Why do you run into the boss? Spread if you're ranged.
Or the icicles at the last moment, the tether will right into you.
Oh my god!
Somebody will adjust and just walk it right in.
I don't stay near the boss as a tank on that. I'm at the wall. I'm gonna be honest.
Even at the wall, you'll be surprised. You'll see an unavant just right past you, or like an Astro with sprint and just
right.
Sorry,
and
later.
As ninja, like if you're not delaying anything, right at icicles, there's a Tenchi Gen there, and like some range just gets right near you, expecting you to move because you're melee. And I'm like, I can't. Like, please don't.
So my favorite thing, and I was watching Xeno stream, and he said it too, mentioning it. Since I'm a tank, if I move into a spot and you move on top of me during the slide, the icicles, I'm not moving. You're gonna die, and I'm gonna live. So that's one of my favorite things. Yeah.
Yep.
There's some really nice uptime you can keep with the tanks on the slide. If you slide to you have the safe spots on the circles that you go to, and if you slide to the side of it, you could just gap close in after, and you won't get hit by the AOE on the outside. Which is a big shout out to Bongo Cat for showing and how to execute that, and that it's doable. It's really, really nice. And then obviously if you're a ninja, you could just Shikuchi to safe spots. It's really nice.
That's broken there. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. I also think that those plunging icicles are kind of a nice homage because there's a lot of Final Fantasy VIII hints in this raid expansion, right? And when everybody thought this fight was going to be like Ultimisia, right? And then we ended up getting Eden's Promise, and then we got Oracle of Darkness, who is like got a little bit of identity stuff going on, which is kind of like an Adea theme. But in Final Fantasy VIII, like she ends up shooting an icicle through Squall, and I'm like, that's the perfect mechanic to pull from Shiva. Because it's a nice little homage.
Oh, you're right. Oh my god, I didn't think about that.
Final Fantasy VIII's awesome. I like it a lot.
I haven't played it in so long, so I forgot a lot of things about it.
I thought that was really cool. When you're in the city, right after you get out of the sewers and you get your carbuncle.
Okay. So let's Shiva. I'm going to say this a billion times. Shiva is the real reason why there's any struggle in P1. It's honestly, that's it.
Yeah. Titan's not bad.
Titan's not bad. I mean, the reason why statues can sometimes be an issue is because people got past Shiva and they're like, whoa, what the fuck do I do now? Right?
They just haven't seen it enough.
They just forget about these other mechanics that happen later in the fight. Same thing with lions. All right, I don't want to say this. Figuring it out was difficult. I'm sure of it. Progging it, you guys have that perspective, right?
Even progging it, we came up with some decent uptime. Like, we didn't come up with the full uptime like they have now, but I don't know. You guys probably did the same thing, Momo, where you got enough uptime where, like, the tether players don't really have to move, but the big lions did. But it wasn't none of this, like, go to the wall and face them out. That didn't have to be a thing, ever. There's a lot of different strats for lions, and they're all pretty good, I would say. They're all pretty good. And Party Finder can adapt to them pretty nicely. The markers are great, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Or you die to it a whole bunch because people only ever get one set and they don't get the other, and now they have to do it and they die. Yeah,
I mean, that's the issue. They rarely see lions.
That's a big reason. That's a big reason, yeah. That's a huge proc stopper, I think. Especially, that was the same thing in Titan, right? Like, you kind of have to know what each color does. And
when we were progging at first for lions, I think tanks and healers got the same mechanic like 5 times in a row. And then we finally got the other set, and we were past the mechanic at that point. We're like, we got the other set and just died immediately. And people were like, fuck!
Yeah, we were actually under the assumption. We were under the assumption that you can never be double blue on tanks and healers, and then like pull 10 or something past Titan jail. We're like, wait, both healers and tanks just got blue.
We got fortunate and got that like the first time.
Oh yeah, that's really lucky.
So yeah,
thankfully it didn't take too long though. But
so I always sneak north, to be honest with you, dude. Every single time, and I'm just going to be as far north as possible, so it's not even logical for me to go the other way, and the other person has to adjust to go south.
Yep. I try to do the same thing. You pop sprint up, and you get it over there, and you're like, I'm just gonna kind of watch what they're doing.
Yeah. Because I mean, they're like, oh, what's the priority? It's like whoever's closer. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's the logical decision, right? It's like Thornton. You would never cross somebody. If it didn't make sense to. You're like, all right, well, this person's clearly going to be next to that marker already. Why would I go there?
Yeah.
But you'll still find people in Party Finder who will do that because, like, I always go south.
Yeah, no, I've heard that line many
I
times.
always go south.
It's like, oh yeah, we
That's
always
my
have tanks
spot.
go south. I'm like, you always have tanks go south? If you not ran into
Yes.
that situation?
Yes, I've never seen it done another way.
It's like, but I don't know. Time was pretty straightforward, and I feel the thing is that like the most deaths that happened during Titan is like right before, like in Nerve and Fury, when we were like, well, I guess we don't got mitigations right, and someone just dies to the AOE, and that's just it. I do, man. I feel like I have P1 like ingrained in my brain. Like I don't even think about it anymore. I just kind of do it. And I don't even know what to really say about it, because I feel like everything in that fight is easy. It's just people can't get the mitigation right to see all the mechanics, and so then they get freaked out at the later mechanics, and that's all it is.
I think ease of difficulty is a little subjective too on how you process the mechanics, right? If you're really good at radial awareness and just kind of like piecing how something's going to look like, you're like, all right, well, this icicle is going to shoot through this way, and that icicle, that person's, for whatever reason, they're not shooting it through the boss, they're off at an angle, so now I got to make this adjustment to compensate. Like, do your best to try to shoot it through her, so that you're not like covering her whole hitbox, because people are trying to keep uptime or trying to just do what seems logical, and just there are players who will not pay attention to that at all. They're just like, I'm safe. I don't know about everybody else.
That's Party Finder, man. It's like, what do
It
I
is.
have to do? Not what do I do to affect other people. It's like, how do I stay alive? How do I, keep my things going? And they don't think about what they're doing and how it interacts with the other players.
But this tier introduced a lot of that, right? I think they tried to push people towards pay attention to your team, and they're like, no,
Yeah.
you're just gonna kill them.
Yeah. And that's how it turns out, man. I do hope that Party Finder gets better. Last night I had the hardest time finding a healer. I don't think healers want to do E12S, and they don't queue up.
I've waited for hours.
Healers are in a serious shortage, I think, for a long time now. This tier was cool, like Momo said, to heal prog, but healing farm is a much different story. And if you've got a fight on farm and other people don't, so you mess up a mechanic, you give the team a damage down, right? So now I've got a damage down, and I have to res your ass because you just fucked up. So now I'm being punished twice for something you did. And then in E12, I've got to compensate because you already said it, Frosty. You're not going to use your mitigation. So now I have to pray that you live. And then I have to use personal mid on myself just to make sure I live, because I know that I'm going to survive to raise you. And Black Mages are really popular this tier, and double melee still in Party Finder instead of having like a caster that can res with a Black Mage. So now it's like, well, it's just me and this other healer. And if they fucking die, I don't know. And I can't run best in slot because best in slot's got no fucking piety. So if I'm going into Party Finder, I'm putting on my other gear and I'm going to fucking pray and save Swiftcast, and maybe I'm going to enjoy myself, and maybe I'm just going to be miserable. And I feel like that's the conundrum that we sit in.
Yeah.
If there's a Black Mage, I always lock the last slot to a res Mage. There's no question about it.
Yeah, you have to. Like,
you're just kind of
because they will mess up.
Party. Not having a battle raise in a clear party is just
yeah.
waste so much time potentially.
And in prog too. Like there are statics that prog without a res mage, and that's really hard. I don't know why you would do that, especially in E12, right? Because if somebody dies, and I don't know if you had this problem too, Momo. If somebody dies to triple APOC, you can't really afford to res them. Like your res mage has to do it, or you're gonna go dry. Like I was using ethers for the final enrage.
I was a scholar, so I don't really have too much issues there. We ran Astra. We ran Scholar or Astra actually, so yeah, we had like plenty of MP. I don't know how White Mage was though.
We had White Mage Astro, and I would go dry towards the end if I had to res.
Usually being dry sucks, man. Being dry sucks. Anyway, so
that's true.
Once you get past P1, and my only experience is from last night. And watching, again, hours and hours of footage to map it out in my head and sit there. Like, I would have my cell phone. I would take my cell phone and I'd put, like, in front of my keyboard and mouse, like, at work, right? At the office. And I'm watching it, and then I have my mouse and my keyboard. I'm like, all right, I'm going to move just like all right, this is what I would need to do when I see this mechanic, right? And I just kind of, like, I went hardcore. Because the thing is if I had a chance to get the P2, I didn't want to waste it. I wanted to get everything I could out of it. And I wanted to, man, I wanted to so badly to just join a fucking clear group and just say, screw it. You know what?
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Just lie. This is my ult.
Yeah, my ult. Yeah. This is my ult. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's my ult. And then when I mess up,
People
and
do that.
When I mess up, it's like, oh, sorry, it's just a bad day today. I don't know what it is.
I'm not really used to these strats. These strats are much different from what I learned.
I'm from EU. I'm new to the NA scene.
Is that your EU voice?
Okay, Kermit.
EU Kermit? What the fuck? But yeah, no, I mean, I wanted to do it, but I was like, I can't in my heart. But you know what? I may just, and what if someone's like, oh, Frosty went in here and he fucking lied to us, and he said, I know it. I heard him on stream saying that he was going to do it, and he did it to our group.
You also said you studied your ass off.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, because what I'm going to do is make a fucking secret alt, and I'm just going to fucking do that strategy. Every party I join is a clear party. I just juice as many mechanics as I can out of that, and then I fucking bounce, go to the next clear party, and just fucking do it. Change his name every once in a while. Just fucking just be the most horrible person possible. But when I get on Frosty, the Frosty Mogborn, I'm going to go in there. Oh, man, he's a pro. I was like, yeah, I've never done this before.
And that's the trick. That's the ticket.
Party Finder has been driving me insane. And I guess it's not really, the fights in general. It's just it's a 50-50. It's fucking America, right? You got 50% like stupid shitheads, and the other 50% are good people, all right? And so you go into Party Finder, and it's 50-50. You kind of have that same thing where you got like half.
Is it even 50-50? I feel like maybe 25, because half of those good people know not to go into Party Finder.
I guess. Fuck, you're right. You're right.
Look at your success rate.
They're in statics.
Party Finder
exactly.
once.
They're in statics.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Let's talk about P2 just a little bit here, and we can come back to my general rants and bullshit.
Sure.
But P2, this is where they bring back spell and waiting, which I think we're all kind of.
What the?
I don't know. That's really weird. I'm going to change it right away. There we go. That's more accurate.
It's perfect. Very good impression.
Well, accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Oh, man. Anyways, spell waiting. I feel like they kind of, I don't know. I feel like it did justice here. It did justice. I mean, it's simple after you figure it out, but they gave a pretty nice little puzzle to figure out for prog raiders, I would assume. You guys have experience progging and trying to figure it out without like having a guide or anything else. So how do you
Prog amazing. Prog was amazing, figuring everything out and putting the puzzle together. And I felt like it got easier as you went. Like basic was probably the harder one. Intermediate, there's a couple ways to do it, and then advanced, like there's only one logical solution that really makes sense, and it's the TPS strat. Works really well with the arena, with the ground. You can use the effects. Everything else in between, a lot of healing, planning mitigation out. Definitely easier than P1, both in DPS check and execution, I think. But the aesthetic awesome, the music awesome, made it really fun to farm, and it's probably one of my favorite fights, just because of how it is. And you watch the puzzles, right? You get frozen in intermediate relativity, for example, and you're like, you hear somebody go, uh-oh, and you're like, oh, what? And then nobody dies. Nobody dies, and you're like, where was the suspense?
Yeah.
But like Momo said earlier in the show, it is very much kind of like a dummy fight once you've got the solution. But progging it was really cool, and watching it execute is really fun.
Yeah, it's a good home run. I mean, in a sense, right? It's kind of like all right, we're finishing it off. Here's the stuff that you really complained about the spell and waiting. Enjoy it. The boss. I remember FanFest and seeing the image of that Gaia, and that was like the thing. It was like, oh, we got this person coming on, and they're gonna do this art here, and this is the art for the boss. Cool. Where is she? Right? And so you think about it for a while, and you're like, oh well, I guess that's Gaia, kinda. When she comes up, and then you see the final raid boss, and you're like, okay, this is it.
Hell yeah, that's what I wanted.
Oh yeah. Like when Momo first put out the artwork, and we saw Gaia, and then for Eden, all we saw was a seed, like a plant coming out of the ground.
Yeah.
And then the final boss is Treeden.
Yeah.
Which is really fucking cool.
Treeden.
Like fully fledged.
I think
the fighting Gaia was
fight.
awesome.
It was or Oracle, I should say, was a good fight. I kind of wish it got the God Kefka treatment though. I kind of do wish they added another.
Were they repeat or?
I wish they added like another relativity to the end, and then had to do an enrage right after that. So
would you want terminal to still be the enrage, or would you want terminal to be before
like
the fight? So
the terminal would still be in there. It would be right after that last relativity.
What would that relativity be called? Super advanced?
Advanced uptime relativity.
They could do something, right?
Uptime relativity.
Oh yeah, uptime or
the main
uptime.
issue with the last part is that it's so short of a fight.
Yeah. What is it? 850 or something? You can't even use a third potion if you see enrage.
Yeah, I'm not sure how other people feel, but definitely the door boss felt more satisfying to prog than the last boss did.
Well, I mean, like, I'll tell you, I appreciate it a lot because after you get past the first one, you're like, okay, I have this one thing to figure out, and it's not as much work at the end. Like, you finally find a group that gets you into it, then you're like, okay, maybe I can clear this fight. Maybe we
I got it.
Yeah, we have.
They should have had a mechanic called Utopia. Right? Utopia, where she summons, everybody gets a Titan mechanic, like a blue or a stack or a spread, and you get the Shiva icicles targeting each player with a lion on each of you, and you have to position properly to either be stacked or spread and not get hit by each other's lions or Shiva icicles.
Sure, we don't need
that. Would have added like 2 weeks to prog.
That would have been great, man.
Yeah, it's ultimate now.
Yeah, we'll see that. We'll see that
Next
in 2
expansion.
years. No, 4 years. We'll see it. Yeah, 4 years. The tank busters that they did here, it's interesting, kind of how they implemented some of it because at the first P1, it was just take the other hit real quick and run away, so you actually get into that off tank main tank situation. And it felt kind of cool because I remember back in the day that was really how it was done. It was always just main tank and off tank. People would consider it that way, but it kind of grew into this. Oh well, we're always going to force swap, and you're always going to have this tank deal this part of the fight and this tank deal this part of the fight. But there's some neat stuff you can do being a support tank, which I think Paladin is kind of like that support tank. It feels like. And can do some pretty cool things. Although I wish cover fucking... I wish it was still like every fight had some use or something. I mean, you can do stuff with it, but it's like you don't.
I suspect you can use cover. I mean, we haven't tested it, but I suspect you could use cover probably for the somber dance to cover a range who can go out and bait and be the furthest target. Maybe for the jump.
The thing is, there's just no point in doing that.
But there's no reason.
Yeah,
right. And we know the safe spots to get it done.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Red. I know I'm taking up all your time.
No. It's totally fine. They just got home, so all the puppies are here.
Oh, cool.
Okay, actually,
Hero.
But going back. Oh, perfect. Oh,
there we go. She's on
sweet.
MogTalk now.
Oh, he's sweet.
This is Hero.
Nice, man. He looks just calm and
puppy.
collective. Anytime I pick up my dogs, they're like, "Please put me down."
No, he's chilling. It's raid talk.
Really?
He loves this.
Nice.
There you go, buddy.
But I think the tank busters, with the jumps and everything else in P2, that was an interesting way to do it because it just changed it up a little bit. And it's easy to...
They have to be more frequent. It's like Shiva, right? You just use your invuln.
Yeah.
Other tank uses their invuln.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
That's the thing with O12, the last part, there was really no tank damage in that Oracle fight.
The autos are okay. They're like, what, 40k?
Yeah, but you never really feel it.
You use your cooldowns.
The boss is always casting, and the boss actually doesn't even auto during the relativities. At least the basic one. I don't know if she does it during intermediate. I actually can't even tell because it doesn't really feel like she's doing anything. Like, I honestly it doesn't even feel like she's autoing sometimes.
Yeah, the black halos could have been cool if they weren't just invulned, right?
Yeah.
And then the... I don't know. It's cool. I'm glad they're doing something. It's hard to figure out solutions, especially when you're in a tank, healer, DPS kind of the sacred triad of MMOs and everything else, and trying to find creative ways to deal with that. At least they're doing stuff out there, and I appreciate it. But you really, as an off tank, what was it? I think a lot of people, at least on the JP servers, from what I've seen, off tank does nothing except for I think they get a close hit at some point.
I mean, even a lot of groups in NA still like you said, the off tank thing with the darkest stance, right? I'm assuming because you're on Paladin, somebody pulls and then you take that hit, right? But a lot of parties will still just have one person just, you got it all, buddy.
Yeah,
it's all you. If you have like a warrior, the warrior can kind of like invuln both of the halos, right?
I wonder if you could single tank E12S with a warrior and just like somehow make that work.
Your close target will die.
But
because it can't pick both. It can't pick the same tank both, so you'd have to just res. Well, maybe with enough shielding and shade shift,
you could shield it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't do that much damage.
Yeah,
maybe like 200k, right?
Shade shift, ninja tank.
Yeah, you could actually
shade shift Benison.
Let's go.
I mean, and you could try.
Why not?
Fuck it on me.
Fuck it. It's a challenge. Yeah,
let's go. All right.
Why not? I mean, like it seems completely possible, and you'd have more damage and you kill the fight faster, right?
And now you make the fight a little more interesting because one of the DPS has to be relative adjust, right, for the relativities, because they're going to get a tank or a healer mechanic.
Oh, that's right.
You can do it with Paladin too, because you could cover the first hit and hold the second, or do both, I guess.
Yeah. But you'd have to make sure that Enmity is straightforward and makes sense. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you're gonna. I think you would want to use a Paladin because you're gonna fucking nuke people in P1, right? With that tank buster, you're gonna lose 2 people every time.
Yeah, but you can't mitigate anything from what hits the person. So
no, but you could hollowed 1 hit and then cover, and then I guess you just lose somebody on the second buster and then hollowed and cover the third.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Hold on,
I'm sure it could be done.
I gotta check your Discord message because I can't see it because I'll mess up the cameras. Hold on.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. I think so. I don't know. Well, I can't even. Hold on. Go in here. Oh, that was a long time ago. I'm sorry, La, but you have permission to go pee. Whatever you need.
Oh, I did. It's too much coffee.
Fair.
Pee sock.
Yeah. The pee sock instead. Okay. So I guess there's a lot more stuff here. Let's see. E12S though. I don't want to go too. I don't want to burn Party Finder today. Party Finder, man, fuck you, but you know you're cool. Maybe we can work something out at some point. You could just because I see. Here's the problem. Like I always want to go like, yeah, I'm just gonna Party Finder all these fights. And I'm just gonna go through this tier. But it's after you know the fight, it's just like how many times do you want to go through finding a group where they don't know the stuff and you just have to reset and that's it. It's not like, are you that good of a player you did it in Party Finder? It's if you're that patient of a player. And I don't know if I am. I don't know if I am, guys.
I think just
12
is just the hardest Party Finder.
Yeah, I don't... Because it just, you're sitting around and you're just hoping for the best situation every time you're rolling it. I mean, and technically I could do Party Finder and a static pops up. Oh, we need a tank. Oh, well, I'm Party Findering, but you're with a static the whole time. So it's...
See, that's kind of like the Bane though, right? So like Square Enix kind of put themselves in this position themselves because they kind of catered's not a good word. They kind of been making fights that didn't really require too much coordination. Or like even Shiva, right? You could go in, you could carry the other healer. You didn't really need to mitigate anything. Like you could pretty much just smooth, like go through without any worries. Yeah. It's been like that for even like God Kefka. You kind of just carry your healer. Like it's been like that for a long time where there wasn't really any force mitigation checks in Savage outside of like Earth and Fury and Titan, right? But even then that was like, wasn't even that bad because you just needed enough to live and you could just heal through the dot. But this one, like, legitimately, you need, like, huge amounts of mitigation to survive because it does, like, 200k plus damage or something. And PF and players who aren't used to doing that are just kind of struggling. Players who can't heal P1 are struggling. Like, it's just this conundrum right now where it's hard now, but if they keep the pacing up of this kind of style of fight, it'll get better in the future because as these fights become more common... Oh yeah, the player base is going to evolve, right? The player base is going to get better at the game.
Well, if they just get better gear, right? Isn't that the situation? It just lasts long enough to where everyone outgears it. You don't think gear's going to fix this one?
I don't think.
No, I think people are way better at the game now than they used to be. I mean, statics couldn't do dive bombs back in coils. Now you have pugs doing them.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
you even have people that will pug ultimates with enough time. But
see, was it really pugging though? Is that because usually when you pug, you're playing. At least all the pugs I've seen of like ultimates have been like the same players with like maybe
I mean,
a
that's the
few people
truth.
switching.
No.
+1.
Right before this tier came out, there was plenty of parties that were just people I'd never seen before, and had never seen each other.
But
And
cleared before.
none of them have cleared.
No, fresh progs.
Okay.
Can you clear the fight?
Because and they had nothing they wanted. I mean, it took a couple of lockouts, but I mean, maybe that's just because they have people like obviously I've cleared those ultimates a lot, but point
That's
is
what I mean. When I
people
think
can
of
learn.
pug.
The party finder, the pugs have learned. Well, Momo, if you joined a party, you know what you're doing. If everybody else doesn't, you still know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
But
when
I think the
of
point is
pug,
people have gotten better, right? Ultimately.
Okay. I will still disagree to a point that like I do agree that people like players who are raiding and have been playing the game for a while have gotten better, but the people who are going into Savage right now, you still have those fresh players that are like still. I don't really raid that much. I only kind of casually do it. I want to sort of make it through it, and then they just kind of get strung along until eventually they force and beat their heads through all the fights.
I would argue that you might even find newer players who they get into the game and they look up the resources and they're better than players who've been playing for multiple expansions.
You were right.
Casual players tend to stay casual. Unless they personally find drive, but then those are individuals that are like out of the blue. But I think more often than not, you're going to find players who are experienced. I was able to clear Phantom Train. I didn't have to do DPS in that fight.
You know what?
Hi, Felicity.
The most enjoyable thing doing E12S so far is just coming in and seeing like 5 people with various legend titles, gear, and everything else, and they just kill everybody constantly in like Shiva or whatever they're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
And like I haven't done any ultimates myself, but I understand how not to kill other people with sliding into them on Shiva.
Frosty Cobb win.
You're out of the ordinary. You're above average.
I mean, to put it in that way, I have been playing since The Realm Reborn, so I have a general concept of how the game works. I just, I don't raid often enough and study enough to really be a good player. So I'm just like that mediocre guy that can make it through.
Don't
stuff.
sell yourself short.
Yeah, you're right. I'm probably the best player. If I did the world race, I'd win it. But the thing is, I gotta stay back and be a spectator. It's kind of like when you do that thing. Like for example, if we were gonna host the most handsomest person, whatever contest, right? You wouldn't even be in there, Momo. I'm going to say Momo because he doesn't have a cam on. Momo, it would be the most handsomest person besides Momo contest, right? Because you can't even come on cam because if you do, you just make everyone else look bad.
Exactly. See, I don't want to distract you guys,
So I have to do the world race without Frosty. That's what we do. So that's why I'm out of it. Anyways, guys, we've been going for almost 3 hours now. We've hit a lot of this stuff. There's a couple more things on here, and I don't know. There are questions from the chat, but I haven't even looked over to see any of them. I do want to ask you what other things that you guys want to talk about with the Savage tier overall that we have to talk about on this show. And Ren, since you made like half the document, I'm going to make you pick one.
Nice. I was just thinking that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Something we haven't discussed yet.
What do we miss?
Oh man, fuck me. I mean, listen, I prepared the list.
Okay.
I guess we could go over the topic where you asked, what mechanics do we wish maybe weren't there, or which ones we wish would have been like a little bit more elaborate.
Wall and
yeah.
E10.
The damage downs are cool because you can work around them. I think it makes you become a better player. Spell and waiting, they did do more with it, but I think they probably could have explored even more. Maybe done like spell and waiting busters that go off at some point as well. In conjunction,
is, right?
yeah, but they could have done it without. Because basically what happens is you set up for mechanics and then Jesus takes the wheel. You can't control your character anymore, right? Which is nice, but maybe some active time ones as well, besides just the stack and spread. Triple APOC was cool, but I feel like the solution was way too easy. Double APOC 2 was also a very easy solution, so it felt like maybe that fight was a little bit too easy. The relativities are okay, but the fight really just becomes easier as you go. So maybe something more difficult there.
Yeah, it's a pretty common one too, right? Like I feel like that, like they kind of make it that way, right? They always put especially for like the harder fights, like the later fights, they always put like the harder mechanics early on, and then slowly make the fight easier as the fight goes on.
And I'm okay with the door boss, having a tighter DPS check. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe add like another 2 minutes onto Oracle.
That's what I was thinking exactly. Just add another relativity. I feel like that would balance it out. Make it like a 10-minute fight. Like
it could even be one of the ones that have already happened or something. Or I don't know, but I don't know. Fight's too short. Mm-hmm. Fight's too short. The other fights are already short, but that one's too short, I think. Mm-hmm. Which is I guess fine. Also, the cast locking on mechanics, like I talked about earlier with like Shadowkeeper and stuff, it's weird. Like if you're killing the boss, why doesn't the boss just die? Instead of some mechanics, you can kill it while it's doing it, some you can't, and not every boss. Which is kind of weird. I think more than anything, something I would maybe change about raiding in general. This isn't exclusive to this tier, but earlier you said people don't learn how to use their mitigation, right? Mm-hmm. Why not add something? Because you could just check FF logs, right? You could just check your third-party tool you're not supposed to be using to see the property of an attack. What does a PS4 player do? What if you have a static? What if there are people who only interact in-game and don't know about outside resources? What's magical? What's physical? I guess I could test. Maybe this works. Maybe it doesn't. Hey, this attack was magical, but it doesn't really come from the boss. But Addle works even though it shows that it doesn't because it comes from a clone of the boss, but not on this clone. Only on certain ones. And they're very, very obtuse about it, right?
I just look up guides. I don't even have ACT installed.
But sometimes we'll even write information on it and we'll be wrong and we'll find out later, right? Like Leviathan didn't have debuffs show up on their attacks for a long time. We found out later they did work. And then Shadowkeeper, we presumed it would be the same way because when the jumpy dog happens, it is a clone of Shadowkeeper. So because it's a clone actor, the debuff should work. But for that one specifically, it doesn't. But for Shiva mirrors, they did. It's just very weird. And it doesn't help the players who only interact in-game.
Okay.
I don't know. What the rest, Todd, you have to feint stuff, right? But then you're like, well, is this going to work? Is it not going to work?
Right. Yeah, like a lot of those busters are magic.
I do think it's kind of sad that this game still doesn't have physical magical support yet. That shows you what's physical and what's magical when it hits you, different colors or something.
Well, that's what I mean. Why not just have an orange attack for physical, right? And then blue for magic or gray for nothing or something.
Game. Yeah.
Okay.
Even WoW has that, I think.
Yeah. It seems like a straightforward thing to throw in there, but I'm gonna ask this question here. This is from a chat member who wants to know, how do they get their filthy co-healer to heal more in PF? I get chatted in 12 all the time as people die to damage.
If you're doing your job and you're overhealing, and you feel like you're doing too much, just heal less. And if you die to it, they'll get the picture. If they're not going to be open to communication. Otherwise, I would say maybe if you're in Party Finder, just go for the clear and sack for it. There are parties that join for optimization, so you can find the ones where you want to heal less.
I do say,
but if you're in Party Finder, you're there for a purpose, right? To kill the boss.
Yeah, I get a little secret. Not a secret. I get a little bit I keep it under my skin and everything. I see those fun parties, and you're like, it'd be really fun if you joined this fucking prog party right here with me, and you get in here and you help me try to get past these mechanics, get past P1. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
That'd be a blast.
Would be. I like first time clears.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing. It's not the first time clear parties. It's just they get in there and learn the mechanic parties that are so hard. It's so difficult to find good groups progging the fight. Getting clears actually kind of works out sometimes, but just finding a group that can, and this is the example, the biggest one is E12S, just getting past phase 1 so you could learn phase 2. It's so hard to find groups like that.
And you could be walled, right? You could be walled and you could be ready. You could have studied 12. You could know exactly what to do in the second phase, and you will be just as far into the fight as somebody who has no idea what they're doing because you just get the same parties.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and that's what it is. It's usually like the same handful of people. And Friday night, there's one party that's trying to prog. I have to create my own party. Sometimes there's no parties. So I'm like, all right, I'll create a party. So I create this party. Now I'm waiting at least an hour for it to fill up because I have to find other people who want to join a party that needs to prog to a certain point in the fight.
Right. Or you see that party where it's like, that guy was what was preventing us from progging last time. I'm not going to join his party. Then you make one, and then he disbands and joins you, and you're like,
"It's full."
I never blacklist people. I've started blacklisting certain healers. I'm going to be honest. I have.
Mine's blacklisted a few.
It's hard.
And
sometimes they'll get the message and they'll grow, but sometimes they won't.
They won't. I mean, and the thing is, this person was joining my party time after time after time again. And he was the consistent issue with people just dying everywhere, like not putting up any shields, not doing anything. And I was like, it's time, man. I have to just make sure he doesn't join my party again, because if he does, it's just going to be another waste of a few hours trying to move forward past P1.
Todd, you take the other approach. You beg us not to ask a bad healer to do more so that they won't leave, so we don't end up in Party Finder for hours again.
Thanks. It's true. I'm like, greet them, wave,
bow before them.
They'll leave. They'll join the party. If you don't do the little like wave sign or party chat, they're like, well, they must be AFK. I'm like, no shit.
I will tell you for sure.
Hours.
I will let you know if I join a party and I wave and no one responds to me. I'm like, there's a 50-50 chance I want to leave that group immediately. It's just like, these guys are not friendly.
This is required.
Because I did that earlier, and the worst thing is when I join in a Party Finder group and half of them are in Discord with each other, and you could tell, and you like say stuff and they don't respond, and then someone else responds for them, and I'm like, okay, so am I talking to like a group of people when I ask questions, or am I talking to one person? Right? I'm trying to figure this out. And then they're just so snooty when they say stuff, and you're like, oh, well, our group doesn't do it this way. We do it this way. I'm like,
we've had that happen too.
That's fine. I'll do it. Just tell me. Communicate with me and talk to me.
Well, actually, I was that healer last night. I had an E12 group. I was gonna go to bed. I was tired. I'm like, I gotta go to bed. And then our friend Evil Cat's like, Todd wants to prog 12 on Aether after he's out of tea. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll stay up for that. That'll be fine in a few hours.
Prog, right.
And then one of my other friends is like, look, I'm out. I'm at my parents for the week. Can you help my group? They've been waiting for a lockout and a half for a healer to join Party Finder. And I'm like, I wanted to tank, but sure, yep. I would love to white mage. So I'm like, all right. So I joined the party and nobody says anything. And I'm like, like John Travolta, right? Sitting in Pulp Fiction, like, and then they're like, oh, sorry, we went to go eat because we've been waiting for 3 hours. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like, yeah, it'll be like 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm like, that's okay. And then I think they got nervous. They're like, don't worry, they'll come back soon, please. And I'm like, I could tell that they're thinking exactly what you guys are thinking. Like, we've been waiting for a healer. We're not going to get one. Please don't leave us. But it was fine. And then they were progging the beginning of P2. We one-shot P1. Awesome. And they made it all the way up to triple APOC. And all people need is, healers that'll join the party who know what they're doing and are willing to use their buttons.
Yeah. All people need is Rin Karigani.
Rin Karigani, yeah.
Rin Karigani.
Yeah. Momo, you should try thinking about healing sometime.
Oh yeah. No, I'm kind of stuck on Conjurer though. It just fits my RP. See, if I went White Mage, wouldn't really.
Mm-hmm. No. All right. We got a question for Rin real quick. It was asking how weird it was as one of the best tanks in the game to not only prog but World Race's healer. What did you do to prepare yourself for the transition, and do you think it improved you as a player in any way?
I cried.
Okay.
I learned tank privilege doesn't exist for me anymore.
Dude. I'm muted.
No, what actually happened was FaZe Temperance held a speedrun event for Dungeons, and I played White Mage in that, and I was like, this isn't so bad. We had lost our healer in Last Impression, and we held a couple of trials. We had one person who was really good, but then they got hired at a job, so they couldn't prog. And I ended up actually shoutcasting with you as Mune.
Oh, Muni? Yeah.
So he couldn't prog with us. And then we were like, well, the other healers were okay, but they didn't like, speak to us. Sometimes you'll trial someone and you're like, yes, you are a great fit. Sometimes it'll be personality, sometimes playstyle. So I was like, well, I know healing enough. And as a tank, you're part of mitigation. So you're like, okay, well, it's not so bad. I think prog's more about the mentality of actually world progging more so the job. You put enough practice into the job, you could do it. But we had a tank who could world prog and was like, do you know any groups that are looking? And I was like, you know what? Do you want my spot? And I'll heal. And I brought it up to the group. And at first they were like half in, half outs. Then we went to the ultimates to see how I do in there. And then a couple of savage fights, and it was okay. And it worked out wonderfully. Because again, you have your hand in mitigation. As a healer, I think it did make me a better player. Understanding what healers do. Like when you think of uptime, people think of melees, right? You think of melees and tanks and getting your GCDs. Yeah. When you play the healer side of things, you see the other side of the spectrum too. You're like, all right, well, this is what it's like on the casting side of things. Slide casting would really suck here. I really don't want to do this. What compromise can we meet? Or a nice thing about prog for me was I didn't give a shit about melee range. Like, I get to be away for this mechanic, and that's great. Like E11 with the burn strike with the lightning, when you have out and out and you have to run away. I didn't care. I was already gone.
It's true.
So it was fun. It was fun. And I think a lot of people that are healer mains have told me that I picked a good tier to heal. I didn't heal the other tiers, but this one was fun and engaging. It made me think. And that made it a nice.
It's one of the
nice
best
experience.
and the worst.
That's
the
true.
best because it's fun. The worst because you were thrown into a fucking fire pit.
Oh my god, dude! I struggled for a little bit at some points, and then like moving mitigation around and not understanding. Like I understood most, but like in prog, both Tenchi and I thought the temperance would affect both of us, and then we learned later that it didn't. So like we're moving things around and solving the puzzle became difficult. And super ethers were on my bar, and it's a good time. I liked it though. It was fun.
Okay. Momo, this is a question for you. It's interesting to hear you say that this is your least favorite tier of the expansion, specifically due to optimization, especially from someone who plays as a more casual. This tier blows past the last one out of the water. What factors go into making a tier fun for optimization?
Okay, well, there's this, in terms of prog, this one was my favorite. Right.
Okay.
In terms of farm, it's up there. Eden's Gate was my personal favorite. The farm, I think that tier was phenomenal in terms of just capability, fun. When I said this tier is the worst for optimization, I'm talking about like speed killing and stuff, right? I'm not talking about like overall. That's why I clarified optimization when I finished that sentence because there's so many different avenues of like grading a fight because you have prog, farm, and then like optimization, I guess. So you have like 3 different ways you can grade a fight. And I talked about it earlier in the stream, but it's just that a lot of these fights, right? Like there's not too much you can really do to optimize. Whereas like last tier, every fight, excluding maybe Ramu, and even Ramu had a little bit to do, but E6, E7, and E8 all had like so much you could do to optimize.
No.
The little things.
Okay.
Especially E7.
Yeah, but it's fucking...
I love it. E7 was my favorite fight to optimize. People does it.
That's me.
E7 was cool.
Sounds like me.
I thought it was so
But have you
good.
ever done the Paladin opener in Leviathan?
That's even
that
more
you
fun,
created?
dude. I didn't create that.
I don't know. You made it good.
Here.
I didn't make it good. I didn't do anything. I just copied it.
Here's a question for Todd. Todd, you do a lot of Party Finder here. What's the worst situation this tier you found in Party Finder so far?
The worst?
I guess interaction with someone else.
God, I'm gonna have to say just people who are stuck on the whole like I only know a marker mentality and they can't adjust and they don't know boss relative versus true north and they end up wiping the group because they only know one side or one position. So I think that causes the most problems in groups.
Yeah.
And the resonator that was last tier.
Well, one thing with macros that I really like is the ability to scroll up mid pull if you forget your position, right? You can't do that with markers. You can't, like, let's say you forget where you are for one spot, right? You can't just be like, oh, I'm mid pull. Like, where am I? You gonna ask in party chat? No one's gonna ask in party chat, dude. They're gonna swallow their pride. They're gonna be like, if I mess up, I mess up. Whereas like a macro, you can just like scroll up your chat and be like, oh, I'm D3 or something. You just look at each, like, oh, where am I for this mechanic? Oh, I'm here. Okay, we're good.
Yeah,
please start
that's
using macros, Aether. Please.
I wish NA would just accept macros.
You know what? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna throw macros up as soon as I'm done with this tier. So my goal is to go into Party Finder repeatedly 2 nights a week, just doing Party Finder. Not clearing, not for myself or anything else, just whatever I can do to help out in Party Finder. And I'll use macros every single time, and I'll see how often I can get it to stick.
See, the thing is, I feel like it has to be a community effort because
it does. It absolutely has to be.
You can't just go into a PF, right, and then be like, I'm using a macro.
No, you have to create the group. You have to create it, right?
Because they are not learning.
Yeah,
I've even put in the Party Finder description in all caps, read the macro, and people join. They're like, what is this?
No,
and then they just
this wrong. You're doing this
I mean, somebody literally told Todd, I just don't.
They said that. They said that to me. And I just said, read the macro. And then I posted the macro, and then they messed up a couple times. And I'm like, do you know what you're doing? They're like, no. I'm like, well, here, just read this. And he typed in party chat, I just don't. I'm like, what? Read?
Don't read.
No, I don't.
And then
okay.
I feel
but
like
we have to make parties ourselves, right? And push for them.
Say what the strats are. I guess a good thing is say what the strats are in the description, but have macros that match those strats in the best way possible, right? And just say, this is it. You are this. So look at this real quick. Understand what you are. Does that make sense? Sure. Cool. Let's go. If not, kick you out. Get another person. I'm helping. I'm helping people learn to not be shitty. Anyways, one last thing before we're done with questions here. There's a handful more questions, but I don't think we've been going for a little over 3 hours now. It's probably time to wind it down. Other than getting good and pressing buttons, what differentiates a god tier player from a normal savage raider? What is one thing people can work on to improve? Let's not say macros.
Being Momo.
Being Ren.
Being Todd.
Oh, yay!
Guys, you're never coming on the show again.
Oh, God. I think just read awareness and not just understanding like what you have to do, but like what the mechanic requires of tanks and healers. And if you can spot that, you can see someone out of place, and if you can adjust and possibly save the run, that's what makes a better raider to me.
And consistency.
Yeah, consistency.
Knowing what to do. You could raid for 10 hours a week and be better than a player who plays 100 hours a week if you understand. Somebody could bang their head against a wall. It's not going to make them better. If you know what to do, how to impact other people, like let's say a healer goes down and now you're going to get targeted by their mechanic. And if you, I'm gonna throw a couple stabs in the dark here, but if you use these third-party tools that tell you what to do for your role and you don't understand the mechanic, and now you have to do what they have to do and you don't know how to do it, you're going to wipe the group. But if you understand a mechanic, you study it, you know how to do every fight. Like Frosty studied P2 and then you made it to the end of the fight, right? Just by looking at things, using your eyes. That'll make you a better player. Pay attention, stay aware. If you can't remember a timeline, try to just remember in your rotation where you are. You're like, okay, well, my fight or flight's coming up, so I know that this mechanic's about to happen, or I'm about to use a trick attack, so this mechanic's about to happen, or the boss is about to go away, so I shouldn't use this here. Things like that are going to make you much better. And mitigation, asking questions, being communicative. If you don't ask questions, you stay silent, and you're messing up, you're not doing anybody a favor.
Yeah. Momo?
I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish too.
Yeah. Be a god tier player or savage, a regular.
Well, I mean, in what context though? Like you're talking like.
Well, consistency in asking questions is like important for anything though, right? If you're looking to prog through a fight or speed kill.
I think mechanical consistency is a big one. I think wanting to improve and having ambition is another one. It's probably actually the biggest, I would say, is having ambition, because that's going to tie into like every other skill you have. wanting
And
to
that's
be
not something
there,
you could teach.
wanting to improve. Yeah.
Right.
Like anybody can anybody can do good damage, right? Especially in like today's age, it's not particularly hard.
Well,
to do good
not if you don't
damage.
do mechanics currently.
Rotations are more simple than ever, but don't die.
Yeah, like having good mechanical consistency and that drive, I would say.
The trial. Okay. Yeah.
Todd was big on my screen for a second.
Also, using that drive to maybe learn mechanics. Like some people will they'll say something safe and they'll play way too safe. Like disengaging for 10 seconds safe when you only have to disengage for like 2, right? Things like that as well. And just learning. Like there's a difference between greed and like logical execution. You can't call somebody greedy if they never mess up or get somebody hit by something, every single time. And then you get that situation where you're like, there might be a chance I'm going to clip people. That's greedy. But if you're like, I'm just going to stay for 2 more GCDs and then leave, there's nothing greedy about that.
Yeah. I'm all for that.
It kind of plays into the purple panels and tiles where people are like, I have to move now. No, you don't.
Yeah. If I see purple, to be honest with you, I wait a second or two, and if mine's going off and the other dude's not moving, I'm like, look, man, you obviously could have reacted. You see his big.
You do what I did.
Yeah, I'll do what Todd does. Yeah.
You selected them for tribute.
Yeah.
Yep. Pull the lever, Crunk.
What do you think will make people better, Todd? You've played on like Crystal, Primal, Aether Crystal. Crystal?
Better? I guess the same thing I try to teach people is just knowing your job's rotation. Some people still don't do that, and it shows because they're like looking at their hot bars and not looking at mechanics. They don't have that awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, learning the things that are happening every single time, like what buttons you have to press in a certain order, not having to watch that, great, because it means you can look at the screen. And it's a lot of fun to look at the screen, to be honest with you. This game is beautiful. There's a lot of cool things to watch for. So that being said, I am going to ask one more fun question. I'm sorry. What's... Man, I feel like asking what's the next ultimate. I want to ask it, but I feel like we're all just... Thornton, it's going to be the Warring Triad. Okay. What is that? Just a red glare? That's all I see.
It's Estinian.
Oh, is it Estinian? Okay.
Nice.
I
oh my god. You came prepared with these backgrounds. Holy crap.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed.
So, what are we looking for the next ultimate? You know what? Maybe I'm going to make this a little bit different. If it's not what we expect it to be, which is that Thornton, Heavensward story, main quest stuff, what is the next ultimate?
Warring Triad would be the only other choice, I'd say.
Warring Triad,
Okay.
yeah.
Unless they skip and go into Stormblood.
What if they made something original?
Haha.
They could. I mean,
They might.
thing.
They might. But ultimate difficulty is like a revamping of an old fight, right?
yeah. I think
Yeah, so far, yeah.
what's really cool though is that they've actually. What actually really surprised me about Oracle, I don't think we talked about, is that there was voice acting in a Savage only fight, which kind of surprised me because we've never had that before.
Yeah, it's giving people who are not raiders, hardcore raiders, something special.
Story mode. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised because it's like, dang, this is kind of
Actually, even the transition was kind of special.
I know,
because
yeah.
it kind of ties into the lore of Final Fantasy XIV.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like non-canon or something? Is what people were saying. I don't know.
No, it's canon.
Oh, is it?
Why would they put non-canon?
Did you watch the cutscenes?
Lame.
No, I didn't. I don't watch this.
He alt-tabbed. He's like, nah, I'm good.
No, it's canon. It's canon. It
She basically junctions the Ashen. Is what you think of it as. Is what's happening. Like she junctions Shiva, junctions Titan, junctions the dude who disappears in the cutscene. But yeah, it is Savage gated content. So go do it.
Yeah.
It's required now.
Not in my group.
MSQ.
Wait a little bit. Wait a little bit, then get
wait a
to
little
it.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Todd puts a PF up and Frosty
when Todd
joins, that's when you go in.
Yeah, we need the gamers. Yeah, for Frosty's clear tonight, right?
Oh man. I'll probably jump in there again tonight, man. I'm at the point where I've cleared it. In my head, I've already cleared this stupid fight. But It's not a stupid fight. It's just very frustrating.
Trap party, let's go.
It's very frustrating.
But yeah, no, I'm probably going to try again tonight and Sunday and Monday and just see. It'd be nice to get the clear this week so I can just stop worrying about it and start doing other things.
I'm with you on that. I'm like 3 or 4 nights in on Aether trying to get a re-clear.
Maybe we get a 2 chest going. Get a 2
We could, or 1 or 2 maybe. I don't care.
Or 0 if it gets the kill.
Or 0.
Gets the page.
That's true.
Yeah. Just pretend like it was 2, but you didn't win anything, which is normal for me.
Well, I will be alerting in general when I start later on. But that being said, I want to thank you guys. You guys have been fantastic on the show today. And I know it's been a long show. I kind of knew it was going to be a little bit longer. I hope that everything in your personal life is okay with it being a little bit longer.
That's
Absolutely.
fine.
Absolutely.
But we got a lot of crazy stuff coming up in the next week or so. Next couple weeks, actually. In 2 weeks, we're going to have this fucking crazy bit of information, crazy large amount of information that we're going to have a lot of fun talking about.
Oh yeah.
I can't wait. I can't wait for all 5 minutes of content.
Yeah. But before we go, I would like all of you guys to say, whatever you want to say, shout outs, where people can find you, anything else you want to say to people in chat right now. We're in the same clockwise thing, starting with Ren. So you could do your final words now.
I wasn't ready for this.
Yeah, same. It's a good thing Rin went first.
Yeah.
I'm Rin Karigani. I'm a tank main Savage Raider. I like to help people clear Savage and Ultimate content. Like we said at the beginning of the show, you could find me on Twitter and on Twitch under the same handle /Rin Karigani. I'm on YouTube as well, which you could just find the links in there because it's some Japanese name that I can't type out right now.
Okay.
I could put it like this, and then maybe you can link it. Actually, I think I can link it because you modded me at some point.
Yeah, you mod it. You're good. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
And I like helping people on Discord. You'll find me in the Balance as a Gunbreaker mentor there. I've been working with stuff on Ock Morning. I do the mitigation calculator that I'm expanding past just E10 and E11. So we're going to try to get a compendium of other mechanics. So if you want to get into learning how to properly mitigate things for your team, but maybe you're not too good at math or you're just new to it and it's intimidating, that tool is a great way to help you out. You can find that on my Twitter. And I generally just like helping people.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, Todd, it's your turn.
Okay. Well, you can find me Twitch TV /Llamatodd, and Twitter's the same, just Llamatodd. Most nights we do Savage content, and I love taking new players in. Just help you learn the fight, so don't be afraid. It's not too daunting, even though we've talked some crap about Party Finder, but with the right group, you can learn a whole lot, and it can be fun. We need more raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just a big shout out to my wife again for all her support. And this time I'll say to Darian Hart, our stream team leader. She's organized a lot for us and made things fun for our group.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And just to my Llama fam, thank you so much for all the support.
Yeah. Okay. Then we got Momo.
Shout outs to Frosty for having me on the show. My name's Momo. I'm a healer main. You can catch me at well, thanks, dude. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
You the best. You the best.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
never. I'll never say you never did anything for me. How about that?
Hope not. Melee player.
You can catch me there. You can catch me on Twitter. Catch me on YouTube. FFXIV Momo. Everything's the same.
Okay. Good. You got more? You want to say something? I guess there's someone out there that's like real special. You gotta say something too, or they'll never forgive you.
Yeah. You can go check out Mr. Destruction, Violent Destruction.
Okay.
Very beautiful man. If you guys haven't seen him, he's like that. Have you ever seen Happy Feet before?
Yes.
You know how happy that makes you when you watch that movie? It's like watching Violent.
Oh, of course.
Big fan.
Yeah. All right. Again, thank you guys. You've all been fantastic on this show. And
wait.
Okay, go.
Shout out to Mr. Rinton. I love you very much. You are a very beautiful human being. Okay.
Okay. Hope Ren 10 feels very beautiful after that.
Oh, I missed my thank
I
you.
like making him uncomfortable.
Yeah,
'cause he
Ren,
gets
if you want to say
uncomfortable.
your
Yeah.
I completely forgot because I'm a baby brain.
Sure, go
okay.
ahead.
Thank you to Team Undisputed and Drifter for having me. Both really good communities, and obviously the late night people that we party find with. It's really, really fun. Obviously Frosty for having me on, and just generally anybody who wants to optimize and do speedrunning in the community. We could use more of you. It's really nice. I like helping a lot of prog players, but having people want to get into endgame is really, really fun, and we could use more of you. Just like Todd said, more people.
Yeah.
More healers for each
Todd,
of us.
Todd, do you need a second go at this?
No, I don't.
No,
I don't
fuck
think
everybody.
so. Maybe I did forget. Yes, I am a ninja main, and I also tank on warrior sometimes.
Okay.
I forgot that part. In case you didn't know.
That's okay. No, that's good.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
tank.
Oh, you played tank? Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
All right, guys.
Wow.
Thank you so much. You guys all have been fantastic. And of course, I couldn't do a show like this without having the three of you guys on here. People who make and work on these strategies, people who are in Party Finder all the time, that are obsessed with this savage content that we deal with every once in a while.
Love it.
Hopefully not every 10, 12 months. But, I mean, we'll get some more soon. We got Ultimate coming up. I would like to say we will be discussing, I'm pretty sure we're actually going to start talking about the restoration of Isgard next week. Because there's a lot of shit that needs to be said about it, and there's some people who would like to talk on it, so I might be bringing them in to talk about it as well. So we'll see how that goes. After that, it's just going to be full orgasm blast of information.
Wow.
Oh, whoa.
At least say eargasm, please.
Oh,
They can't take
eargasm,
any
sorry.
more.
Eargasm blast of expansion information, live letter information, all this stuff that's just going to be like show after show, and we're just going to be talking about this stuff for quite a while. So please look forward to that. And I want to do a special thank you to Andre Kane, who helps with the music on the end and beginning of this. I use this music for that. I also want to do a special thanks to my wife, Kerr, who puts up with me doing this show and streaming and everything else. If you guys have Prime, go ahead and use your Prime subscription now on this channel. If you don't want to do it, use it on Ren's channel or Llama's channel or Momo's channel. Don't let that shit just sit there. I appreciate all the support you guys do, and these guys appreciate all the support you guys can give as well. Thank you very much to Patreons. Thank you very much to everybody who supports what we do here in the community. I do have a credits that you guys should all watch, and then we are going to do a raid on a channel, so stick around for that. Until next time, be good, keep cool, stay frosty. Bye. Say wave, everybody wave.
I'm waving.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, y'all, thanks for recording the show here today and coming and watching and everything. It was a great show. We had some nice guests on, and they talked about the really good stuff today. I'd also like to go ahead and do a quick thanks out to those Patreon supporters and the ones that go out there and above beyond try to support the show. And, of course, I'm making this video due to there's like four people. There's four people that actually support the show properly, or not properly. They just have lots of money. So, Ak Morning here helps out with the show in the top tier, and Dude is Antonio, and Super Miyu, and Tag. Since they all support the show at this level, I make sure to say their name at the end of the video. But of course, I appreciate everybody that does any kind of subbing or any kind of Patreon support here to make sure that we get the stuff howdy done. So I think maybe next time I don't really have too much for you guys here to entertain. So I figured I'd come back and bring back the accent of my homeland, so you guys would actually know what Frosty really sounds like. I actually put on a lot of effort to make sure I don't sound like this, but just bring up the veil today, you know? So until next time, you guys be good, keep cool and stay frosty.